And where's the screen to switch? Or...
You want to switch it? Well, I mean, this is what's on the screen right now.
Okay, let's... Hello, people of YouTube! Thank you all for showing up to our Sapphic Fanfiction Hour stream. We haven't done one of these in over a year.
Yeah. And I guess we're going to claim it's because they updated Homestuck 2, even though that's not entirely true.
Yeah. Honestly, if we're feeling up for it after a couple episodes of the Progeny, we could read the update.
We could do that.
We can do all the voices.
Yeah, but I'd just be having a conversation with myself for half of it.
That's very true. Rose barely talks in it.
Jade and Jonaya, so...
Jade and Jonaya having emotions. Okay.
It was good.
For those of you who haven't read the update, I'm sorry for the spoilers, but...
drink. Thanks.
Jade and Yiffy. Oh, she cares about Yiffy so much.
I've never been happier to be wrong about something than the way that Homestuck 2 went. Oh, I'm going to listen to that later.
Listen to...
Jojo, the music samples.
Oh, nice.
For Volume 12. So, yeah. Yeah, if you're not... Let me go back to the chat here. If you're not familiar with this, what did you... Oh, it's a different icon. That's cool. I don't know how many people here were here for the previous ones or read this fic previously, but this is the... we're reading the Antecedent, which is a sequel to Anna's The Progeny, which is a fic where the Hive Swap trolls and the Homestuck trolls are coexistent in time, and Tysius and Stalsa raise baby Karkat, and they start the game at the end of that. The Antecedent picks up on Earth, like 20 years after the events of the session, and there are flashbacks to the session as well. So we've been reading this for a bit. We're like halfway through it, I think.
Yeah. And yeah, for those, I feel like it's all people who are regular
Probably.
viewers.
There's a lot that's happened.
But for those of you who don't remember, Jonaya wrote The Antecedent to get me...
It's gonna fall.
Fine. To get me to fall for her, and now we've been dating for 2.5 years.
I wrote the first chapter a day before I asked you
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Jonaya wrote the first chapter of the Antecedent the day before she asked me out. So
yeah.
it's our even if the fic itself, I mean, it is gay, but it's not like that gay. It's not a romance.
No, it's a I don't know, spy thriller more than anything else.
The Antecedent is.
Yeah. For the Progeny is not. The
Progeny is... What genre would you say the Progeny is?
I don't know. Drama.
Yeah.
Some sort of drama.
Yeah, like the Progeny isn't really a romance either. Like, it's gay, but it's not like coffee shop AU type gay. But YouTube keeps demonetizing us for having gay in the title, so it's the Sapphic Fanfiction Hour now.
But yeah, so like in this fic, there's been a bunch of stuff happening. There's like the suburb program has resurfaced on Earth, and Tysius is trying to figure out what's going on with that. And there's a cult with Vriska involved, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. It's y'all figure it out. We're only halfway through. There's a lot of other stuff going on. So yeah. Do you want to start reading it?
Yeah, let us begin.
Click on the this icon. Click and then that one.
All right. How do we make? Is it up on OBS?
Oh yeah. Go to OBS and click gameplay. It's gameplay, but it's not actually gameplay. There you go. So now click back to the thing, and there we go.
Ah, all right.
And keep in mind that the visible portion of the screen for the audience is going to be from about here to about here.
Okay.
So
it's not the full...
It's not the full screen, because there's like...
You guys get the joy of seeing a much nicer screen than you would on my computer, because Mac is honestly terrible with streaming. I am legitimately considering getting a PC laptop just so I can stream on my own again.
Do it.
I'm a Mac girly. I've spent my whole life... I grew up in a Mac family... But, I'm thinking if I have two computers, I might as well have one that's good for streaming and one that's good for working.
All right.
So bright, yeah.
You're the narrator for this chapter.
Wait, who's saying? Hey,
You're the narrator. It's Karkat is starting, but I don't know if you want to read the titles and stuff. Hey, do you have a minute?
The voice was familiar, of course. There were only 3 people on the planet, after all. It wasn't Tisius speaking to her, so Polypa could deduce from process of elimination that Karkat and Tixesiat wanted her attention. She sighed and leaned back from the cliff she was sitting on, a cliff teetering over an entire ocean of brilliant red blood.
Sure, what's going on?
The smell of the place had been almost overwhelming at first, but spending a few days there, she'd finally gotten used to it. Karkat walked over and sat next to her, kicking his own legs over the side and looking down at the oceans and oceans of blood.
It's weird being here. I keep getting these ideas that maybe things could have been really different. Like, all this blood. It reminds me of me.
He looked down at his palm thoughtfully, closed his fingers into a fist and grinned.
Part of me wonders what things would have been like if it weren't for Mama Tiz and Mama Stells. If they hadn't taught me who I am, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Polypa smiled at him. She didn't really know him as much beyond Tisius' son, but he seemed to be a pretty level-headed wriggler in general. Well, not fair to call him that. He was already 6 sweeps. But by the same token, she was more than twice his age. Part of her hoped that everything they'd done in the revolution would make him part of the last generation where youth was defined by the ever-present fear of the future, of the inevitable trip off-world and everything that entailed. No world to go back to, in any case.
I mean, being the literal descendant of the Signless...
Polypa trailed off and gestured at the sea of blood below them.
There are worse things to be. True.
He smiled at her. The slightly awkward smile of someone who just started really coming into their own identity.
Yeah, you're so smart, Aunt Polypa.
Polypa rolled her eyes and groaned.
Don't call me that. I'm not your mom's Moirail or Kismesis or anything. Just someone who saw the good in what she was doing and decided to make a difference. I don't know. Mama Tiz talked about you sometimes. Said you were one of the bravest people she knew. The way that you helped run raids on the prison colonies to rescue people who didn't deserve to be there. No one deserves to be there.
Polypa stared at the blood, boiling and rolling below. She'd never known another mutant blood before Karkat. Only knew about the stories of the Signless, and somehow he seemed to perfectly encapsulate everything that had been wrong with the Alternian Empire. Karkat nodded, and his voice dropped in volume.
That's not what my friend Terezi says. She thinks that there's people who should be locked away. Bad people. She's fucking wrong.
Polypa's face flushed a deep olive green, and she snarled, causing Karkat to startle. Taking a deep breath, Polypa looked at him carefully and smiled softly.
Sorry, I'm not mad at you. But Terezi is wrong. You start trying to be the one who arbitrates good and bad like that and lock people away, kill people, things get really bad really fast.
Silence walked between them and sat down, settled in the physical space that separated them and threw up a wall. Polypa kept looking down at the blood below, wondering what was taking Tisius so long. As entertaining as talking politics and morality with her son was, it was starting to verge into territory that felt distinctly personal.
I think she and Kanaya might be... I think they might be planning to kill someone.
Polypa's eyebrows shot up as she turned to stare at Karkat.
What the hell did you say? Terezi, she and Kanaya, they're planning something. Kanaya said some weird stuff on Trolly and... I don't know.
He looked down at his knees and began to pick at the dirt next to his legs.
She scares me now. Ever since she changed on that slab thingy. God tier, that thing.
That had been one of the hardest things for Polypa to accept about this game they were playing. That its control over reality extended to the very boundaries of life and death itself. Already, several of the players had died and been resurrected with unbelievable powers. Kanaya had died on her planet, along with Dagora. The two of them had been given powers that allowed for the manipulation of physical reality itself. It made sense that Karkat would find this a little frightening.
She mentioned something about Terezi. About how Terezi went god tier and she saw something really important. She asked me how I felt about Vriska.
The name was familiar, but less so than some of the others. A friend of a friend of a friend's son kind of thing. Distant and disconnected.
What did you tell her?
Karkat shrugged.
I don't know. I said I wasn't sure how I felt about her. She just seems kind of really mean all the time. She's Terezi and Kanaya's friend, not mine.
Something in his face said that there was more to this story. Something else that he was wrestling with. Before Polypa even had a chance to ask, Karkat was already talking again.
I think they might be planning to hurt her. I don't know, just a feeling that I get. Even though Terezi is Moirail's with Vriska.
That was it. That was the part that stabbed Philippa right in the guts and twisted until she felt like she was going to vomit right there and next to her friend's son. Moirails. It was supposed to mean something. You were supposed to support your Moirail, to keep them from hurt. Oof. Burp. You weren't supposed to.
Shoot them in the head when they confront you about rescuing prisoners from the Empire.
Philippa groaned and closed her eyes.
I'm sorry. Are you asking me for advice? I don't know, Philippa. I guess I was just wondering what you would do. Honestly, you don't want me to answer that question. Ask one of your moms when you get the chance. They know more about this shit than I do. I'm just here to pull a trigger.
She reached down and patted the rifle that was sitting next to her on the ground. The same rifle that had cut her Moirail's life so tragically short. She knew she was underselling herself in the worst possible way, but she didn't want this boy to look up to her.
I was gonna ask Mama Tiz when she got back from looking around. Yeah, speaking of that, it feels like she's been gone a while. We should go looking for her.
Philippa grabbed the rifle and shoved herself to her feet, turning away from the ominous cliff over the sea of blood.
Let's go.
They'd been walking for a good 10 minutes when they heard Tizius screaming. Karkat bolted ahead immediately. How the hell did that kid move so fast? He was around the corner of a dark obsidian rock formation and out of sight before Philippa could even catch up to him. She rounded the corner, then cut through a series of pathways that weaved through a series of larger rocks, then out into a clearing on the other side. In the middle, she saw Karkat fighting with someone she'd never seen before, a strangely shaped man with an all-black outfit. He didn't have skin exactly, but more a shining, hardened shell, like that of a beetle, the same flat color as his suit. He was holding a knife that dripped with a blend of red and teal. Tizius was on the ground nearby, bleeding profusely from a wound on her stomach. Karkat had sustained injuries himself, was continuing to sustain injuries as the strange man stabbed him again and again as Karkat tried desperately to fight back. He was outmatched, a wriggler pitted against some horrifying construct of Sagrub itself. Philippa didn't need to think about what came next. She raised the rifle to her shoulder, lined up her target in iron sights, and smoothly pulled the trigger. The rifle barked out once, and the strange man's head snapped back, and he went down all at once, collapsing into a motionless heap on the ground. Karkat staggered back, bleeding, and turned to stumble over to where his mom lay on the ground. Slinging her rifle back over her shoulder, Philippa ran up to Tizius, sliding into the dirt next to Karkat. Tizius was alive, but only just.
Mom!
Karkat screamed. His voice sounded too wet from his injuries. There was a lot of blood where it wasn't supposed to be.
Mom, hold on. I'll get you help.
Karkat looked over at Philippa, pleading all over his face. Help her? But what could she possibly do? She only had a basic first aid training and no supplies to work with. It wasn't just Tizius. Karkat had lost a lot of blood, and the way that he was talking, he probably sustained a serious internal injury or two. His breathing was already becoming ragged, and she had no way to treat that. Philippa was, effectively, completely helpless. But there was a way.
You two need to get to the slab. Fucking now.
Karkat's eyes went wide.
But shut the fuck up.
Philippa reached down and started to lift Tizius from one side.
Help me get your mom on her feet.
Karkat immediately snapped into action. He slid his shoulder in under Tizius' other arm and pushed up. It must have hurt so much. His breathing was getting even rougher, but he didn't say anything. Only grit his teeth and pointed off to one side.
Wait, who's saying this? I think it's
I think it's Karkat.
Okay.
It's over there. We need to hurry to get around the slab. Kid, at the rate you're going, we're going, it's going to be both of you on that slab.
The slab wasn't far. Nothing on the tiny little world was that far from anything else, but the journey there felt interminable. Tizius was fading fast. Philippa could literally see the lifeblood ebbing out of her body as she became more and more pale. Her son wasn't doing much better, less able to absorb the blood lost in his mother, and barely able to keep himself on his feet.
Just another 30 yards to go.
She could see the slab up ahead, and that was the only hope for either of them. Staggering forward, Philippa leaned in, the two of them, and tried her best to keep them from falling over. One step at a time, another 10 yards down, then the final 10. She didn't see the ogre until it was already on top of them, roaring and towering over them.
Go!
Philippa shouted.
You need to go!
She shrugged out from under Tizius' arm and grabbed her rifle, turning to face the monster head on. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see Karkat stumble, then pick himself and his mother up. He was already moving forward, faster than Philippa even thought possible. The ogre took a step toward her, and Philippa raised the rifle.
I'm so fucking tired of all of this.
She held down the trigger and sprayed a burst of automatic rifle fire into the creature's head and torso, peppering it with the anti-personnel rounds that she favored. The thing roared. It was still somehow standing after all of that, and swiped down to hit her. Philippa rolled to one side, hitting the ground awkwardly and tumbling along as the ogre tried to bring its heavy fists down on her. Karkat was still moving toward the slab, dragging Tisius with him. Philippa pushed herself to her feet and brought the rifle up again, aiming right for the ogre's head. Another burst of gunfire struck it. The sound of the bullets impacting the creature's hardened exoskeleton resounded across the blood-smelling wasteland. Once more, the creature turned to attack her. Karkat was almost at the slab now. This time, she was ready. Philippa darted forward and slid on the ground between the creature's legs, tucking herself into a roll and coming up quickly before it had a chance to even register what was happening. She aimed at the same spot as before and pulled the trigger. This time, the noise was dull and thick, the sound of the hollow point rounds impacting flesh. The ogre made a gurgling, grunting noise and collapsed heavily onto the ground. A couple dozen yards away, Karkat had pushed his mother onto the slab and collapsed down next to her, his arm draped over her shoulders. Philippa stood and watched, unable to decide what to do next. She watched as Karkat stopped moving, as the last vestiges of life drained away from him. He lay there on the slab, sprawled out next to his mother's body. And then a light shone, a light so brilliant that Philippa had to turn away and close her eyes. The light hurt against the darkness, the lights arrayed all around Narragansett Field. Lights that had selectively concealed what was really happening. Philippa opened her eyes to slits and groaned. She'd been kneeling next to Philippa. Is that supposed to be Connell?
I think it's Connell, yeah.
She'd been kneeling next to Connell on the hard runway for half an hour, having been quickly left by a Terezi that told them she had business to attend to, and of Vriska, who refused to say much of anything to them. Okay, I guess Vriska had been revealed at this point.
Yeah, no, she was revealed like 2 chapters ago.
Okay, well, I'm a little dumb. It's been a year.
Yeah, I mean.
Also, hello, Some Homestead. Thank you for showing up. Also, yeah, sorry, Ari, we finished the actual Progeny, like, a year and a half ago. Yeah. It took us, like, 2 episodes to get through Real Progeny.
Yeah, Real Progeny is, half the length of this story.
Yeah. How do the views look over there?
What do you mean?
Oh, we do have 2 viewers. Damn, we had 5 earlier. Aw.
4.
Well, now we have 4. It fluctuates. I think is that Philippa's thoughts?
Yeah. In the books, they'd have given me an extended monologue about their backstories and told me why the fuck Vriska Circuit is apparently alive and well.
It was a naive thing to think. She and Skyla weren't important to... Oh, it was Skyla.
It's Skyla that she's next to, yeah.
Important to this anymore. They had played whatever role in facilitating what was starting to happen, and now they were just spare pieces being kept on the side of the board until such time as the players decided to toss them out. Guards had been talking quietly amongst themselves for 10 minutes, so Philippa got the strong feeling that such time was imminent. For what it's worth, Owls respected the hell out of y'all. Skyla laughed as she said it. He'll have a bulge on you to keep going back and back again as you do. I don't think I would have punched Tisius out like that after everything.
You heard about that.
Philippa went to laugh, but her head started throbbing as soon as she did it. So she ended up settling for a half-hearted chuckle. Everyone did eventually. Heard you 2 had a whole knockdown fight in the parking garage?
And wasn't that exactly?
Philippa felt the hot flush of shame on her cheeks.
I think I was wrong to do that, actually. Right reasons, wrong course of action.
Not like it matters. Skyla began to speak, but let her words fade off into darkness. The group of guards had finished their deliberation and was walking back over to where Philippa and Skyla knelt on the ground. The human who appeared to be acting as the de facto leader walked up, holding a pistol, narrowing her eyes and shaking her head back and forth. Sorry, it's not personal. She raised the pistol and leveled it at Philippa's head. Philippa closed her eyes. The gunshot was strangely distant, echoing as if it were coming from elsewhere. She'd never been on this end of the process before. There was a strange sense of holistic awareness to it. Philippa opened her eyes. The woman had collapsed in front of her, a large chunk of the back of her skull now missing. The other guards were looking around frantically, their weapons at the ready as they tried to make sense of what had just happened. Another gunshot. Another one of the guards dropped down as his throat sprayed rust red to the side. Another. This one teal. Another. A human who stood half-head above everyone else. One by one, each of them dropped to the ground like sacks of wet concrete. The last guard fell without a sound. None of them had even fired a single shot. Her earpiece crackled to life. Philippa hadn't even realized they'd left her comms on when they knocked her out. A familiar voice in her ear.
I believe that is the last of them. Kanaya.
She wanted to shout into the receiver, but she couldn't reach the button to transmit with her hands tied behind her back.
How the fuck are you still alive?
God-tier powers? Maybe. But they definitely faded when they all arrived on Earth. It didn't even matter. Polipa was alive, and the only reason for that seemed to be Kanaya Mariam. When you killed off Kanaya, it was like, you weren't going to kill off Kanaya.
No.
Like, this is you we're talking about. You can't kill off Kanaya.
Love.
Squish. So is this you narrating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing Tisius could remember seeing before the light faded from her eyes was her son, bleeding and broken, lying on the slab next to her. He put his arm around her, just the way he used to when he was a wriggler. The way that he'd cuddled up when she and Stelsa were reading to him or telling him stories. More than anything, she wanted to hold him back. To put her arm around his shoulders and tell him that it would be okay. Everything would be okay. 6 sweeps was too young for this. And then the light faded, and there was only darkness. She didn't open her eyes right away, but she could tell that her awareness had returned to her. The pain had subsided, no longer feeling like her lungs about to burst from the pressure of the blood pushing in on them. Even in the absolute of the darkness of this place, she could tell she wasn't alone. There was something else there. Not a person, not exactly, but some piece of herself. A piece that had been taken and sealed away, locked off from her until the time was right. A shifting, vibrant form of teal that writhed and churned in the middle of the darkness. Something that kept coming closer and closer to her, and she was unable to move or even look away from it. But somehow, she wasn't afraid. It moved closer, close enough that she could see every movement of the wet, slightly viscous fluid that it was made of, the embodiment of blood itself, and of so much more, of the bonds that tied her to every other person, of the loyalty she had to her friends and family, of the connection she had to her son. Tisius reached out.
Scotty Leona says, Jonaya can't kill Kanaya because then she would vanish.
In a single moment, the vision flashed in front of her, a cacophony of sensory experience that she shouldn't be able to even process, and yet somehow she knew every word that was said, every image shown. Suddenly she knew what Terezi had done, what she and Kanaya had planned together. Vriska and Aridin were dead, and they wouldn't be coming back. Terezi had seen something, some portent of the future that told her that this was the only way to ensure that they stayed safe. So she'd done what she felt she had to. A world opened up in her vision, a blue-green planet like nothing she'd ever seen before. Alternians lived there, and some strange race of aliens that Tisius didn't recognize. Theferi ruled the planet, seeing herself as benevolent and wise. The world would be destroyed in fire. The conflagration rose up as the meteors rained down from the pale blue sky, and the flames rose higher and higher until the whole world burned to the ground. A sacrifice of billions, that a select few would make a new world. She knew what she had to do. She needed to speak to Terezi. And then Tisius opened her eyes. Along the southern shore of the island of New Amsterdam, there was a swath of a park that had been carved out by Theferi's decree in order to memorialize the people who had died in service of bringing this new world into being.
Is this supposed to be Riverside Park?
No, it's down near Battery Park.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It included those who had died in the service of the revolution against the Alternian Empire, as well as the ones who had volunteered to first go to Earth to help establish the Alternian population 500 years prior. The memorial itself was made up of a series of alabaster monoliths devoid of any names or identifying markers, but each one of them represented a single individual. Some of them were people Tisius had barely known, and some of them were people she'd fought alongside. They were all equal now, the same marker for everyone, in a world committed to bringing about peace. Tisius had actually believed that once, in spite of her better judgment. No matter how well-intentioned Theferi was, there was always the sense that what was happening was never fully in her control. She had accomplished something amazing, leveraging a combination of her own demigod-like status and collective cultural memories of the Alternians on Earth to establish a nominally peaceful, benevolent empire here on Earth. But empires were only peaceful and benevolent until they weren't. Tizius had tried for so long to ignore what was happening around her because she had something larger to worry about. Something that threatened their very existence and the lives of billions of humans and Alternians alike. It felt like, in some way, Teresia was at the heart of this now. So Tizius drove to a spot a couple blocks from the memorial and parked Kanaya's car before making the rest of the journey on foot. The memorial park itself was lit up at all hours, so even the encroaching night didn't touch the brilliant white of the monoliths that stood neatly arranged in their rows. Among the memorial stones, there was a small selection that's set aside from the rest. A set of 4 markers that represented the Signless, the Disciple, the Psionic, and the Dolorosa, the founding members of the First Revolution. It was to these 4 that Tizius was drawn, walking up to them and staring as if she could actually see the faces of the people who those 4 stones represented. She supposed that she had almost been able to do just that, when her powers inside of Scrub had given her that burst of insight, had prompted her to have a conversation with Teresia and Kanaya, had started her down a path that she wasn't sure she wanted to walk anymore. The vision had faded like the early morning mist in the sunlight as soon as they'd arrived on Earth. She no longer had any of the abilities she'd been gifted with. None of them did. And so they were all the same, making their way without any clear idea of what the end destination would be.
Is this supposed to be Terezi?
It's Terezi.
Oh, fuck, what was I doing for Terezi's voice?
I don't remember who was... You were doing Terezi's voice?
I think I was doing Terezi. Because your Terezi sounds too
much like Karkat, yeah.
I know every name on these stones.
The voice from behind, gravelly, but somehow lilting. Tizius turned and saw Terezi standing there in a plain gray suit.
So?
Tizius narrowed her eyes.
You remember things better than most.
Just scroll it.
Oh, right, yeah.
Terezi took a step towards Tizius, smiling and putting a hand out to touch one of the monoliths.
These are the people who laid down their lives so this world could exist, so her benevolence could usher in a new era of peace and prosperity for everyone.
Sure.
Tizius shrugged and looked around, subconsciously checking to see if Terezi was by herself.
Don't worry, it'll just be us for now. Stelsa knows you're here?
Tizius nodded sharply.
I told her everything I know, which admittedly isn't all that much.
Good.
It was impossible to tell how anything registered with Terezi. She nodded impassively and leaned forward toward Tizius.
Let me ask you something. You took the offer I gave you, the job at the IRB, because you knew it was important to prevent Sagrub from being unleashed on this world. Because my vision and yours lined up. The way the world will burn. All the death.
Where was this going? Terezi was just rehashing information that they'd discussed countless times over the last 10 years, and for what? She had already shown her commitment to the IRB and to protecting the people of Earth from the fate that had befallen the Alternian Empire.
You already know the answer, Terezi. Is this really what you wanted to talk to me about?
Tizius, would you say that you're still, at heart, a revolutionary?
A strange feeling spiked in her gut. The sense of collapsing time. This was the beginning of what Terezi actually wanted to talk to her about. And somehow she knew that her answers would be of paramount importance. Tizius looked at Terezi evenly and spoke her answer.
Of course.
Good. I am too, Tizius. No matter what people might think based on what I have had to do, everything has been in service of a larger cause.
She glanced over at the markers.
The same way that Neophyte Redglare was inspired by the Signless into sacrifice.
Well, her marker's in here somewhere too.
Tizius said quite quickly. Something about this felt off. Probably the end result of a day spent running for her life.
Near the Summoner. You know the names, you said.
Terezi nodded thoughtfully.
Of course. Heroes of the Second Revolution. You know the stories.
Yeah, I do.
The sound of Terezi's laugh echoed off the stones and out into the darkness.
I don't think that's true, though. After all, the story you were told about the Second Revolution, it's a lie.
Every hair on the back of Tizius's neck stood straight up, and she took a step back. Her mind went to the pistol concealed behind her jacket, but she kept herself from reaching for it. Terezi would know before she even got to it. Sight restored or not, she never lost those little tricks of listening for subtle movement.
Is it now? Why don't you tell me the truth, then?
I know you've already probably figured out the existence of the Order of the Mutineer. Kanaya knew what it was, and she was never very good at keeping her fussy nose out of things.
Terezi laughed again.
But the part she doesn't know is we've been here for a while.
Every red flag, every possible alarm was sounding all at once.
I can practically hear your heart racing, Tysius. This is making you uncomfortable. Why? Does the idea of the woman you demonized for your entire life maybe wasn't the person you thought? The lies spread around about Arania Circuit only serve the interests of the Empire itself?
You know what she did. You know as well as anyone.
It was taking everything in her not to reach for the gun.
What she did to the mother of the First Revolution. You have to know.
Of course. Everyone knows the story, but what's the source for it? A journal she wrote? A piece of propaganda she was forced to write in the moments before her trial? Forced to betray the memory of her lover and write those lies about what happened? After all, the alternative was losing her beloved Rufio.
Terezi clucked her tongue and shook her head sadly.
Not gonna lie. Not having the summoner named Dante fucks with my brain. Like, that's
not his name in canon.
I know.
That was the name you made up for Time's Apprentice.
I know, but like, Arania to Amalia and back again makes more sense in my mind, but Dante to Rufio is just like, no, his name's Dante.
You could call him something else. You could call him Rudy or some shit like that.
That would be so much worse.
Oh.
Her story was a tragedy, to show how the Empire can steal even the memory of someone.
This is completely insane.
None of it made sense. It didn't line up with other facts. It didn't match the other accounts that had been found. It didn't make any sense.
Rufus.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
And Terezi believed it wholeheartedly.
Terezi?
Tysius began to speak cautiously. This felt like defusing a bomb that was about to explode.
This history lesson has been fascinating, but what are you asking me to do?
You raised Karkat. You know all about the revolution, or at least the version the Empire wanted known. Now, I'm asking you to see it for what it really is. I am asking you to help us convince Feferi to step down and let the people's revolution proceed. Of course, the revolution needs leaders. You, me, Karkat, and the one who's the heir to the most unfairly maligned legacy of them all. Vriska Circuit.
The name hung in the air and Tysius stared at her.
She's dead. When I went God tier, I saw what you and Kanaya did. She killed Eridan and you killed Vriska. You said that it had to be done, that their deaths were necessary to prevent the failure of our session.
That was true. But fate has a strange sense of humor.
Terezi cackled into the darkness and took one more step towards Tysius.
I'm sorry for keeping this from you for so long, but I needed to know where you stood.
Everything about this was wrong. Tysius took a deep breath and tried desperately to keep her heart from hammering its way out of her chest. Hopefully Terezi would just read it as simple nerves.
So, how are we, going to accomplish this? Feferi is no Condus, but she genuinely believes in what she's doing. She isn't gonna step down. You know this.
She will.
Terezi reached inside of her suit and produced a small, thin, square object. It looked like a disc case. The realization hit Tysius all at once, and suddenly everything began to make sense.
You were the reason that the Order had access to IRB gear. Why they were able to get into the IRB field office so easily. You killed all those people for this!
Tysius felt her mouth going dry, and the second realization hit her just as hard as the first.
The airfield. Palipa's team is flying into a trap, aren't they?
Terezi shrugged, and the sheer casualness of the gesture was sickening.
Technically, just Palipa, Kanaya, and Skyla. I handpicked the assault teams, after all.
Of course you did.
Terezi slipped the scrub disc back inside her suit and nodded.
I'm sorry. For whatever it's worth, the team did have orders to attempt to keep them alive. Barring any major contingencies. Haven't heard anything from the team, so I assume they're all still alive and well. Another one of those... Oh, wait, that's you.
Another one of those dismissive shrugs, and Terezi's smile crept back into her face.
So, that's my offer. Help me convince Feferi to step down and help us lead this revolution of the people. You've believed a lie your whole life. Aren't you interested in serving the truth for once?
No!
Tysius yelled back, surprised at the ferocity of her own voice.
Feferi is wrong. She does need to step down. The only reason I ever worked with her, cause I knew that disc was out there. That someone would use it to end the world, and I was willing to sacrifice my own beliefs to stop that from happening.
She felt sick to her stomach. 8 years spent in the service of Feffrey's Imperial Regulatory Bureau. 8 years that she had pretended to be okay with what was happening, because the alternative was even worse.
And it was you the entire time? You were the one planning to hang this over our heads. So you can support a lie? So you can be in charge and call it a revolution. People need a leader, right? Might as well be you and that cerulean bitch who apparently did a piss-poor job of actually killing.
That hit a nerve. Terezi growled and took another long step toward Tizius.
The only reason you're still alive right now is because you're Karkat's mom.
Yeah, of course. Glad you finally showed me who you were, I guess.
She sighed and looked down at the ground, and all the fury went out of her all at once. She was just so painfully tired, so sick of everything.
Terezi, this isn't right. You saw what Sagrub did. Just destroy the disc, and we'll figure this out another way. The fairy isn't unreasonable. She'll listen to you. The fight for revolution doesn't have to be like this.
Just so I'm clear.
Terezi asked, her voice low.
You're saying you're not going to help me? That you might even be planning to work against me?
Sure, Terezi. Let's just go with that. Just destroy the disc and we can talk about this.
Terezi looked sad. For the first time that Tizius had seen her genuinely look upset for a long time.
Look, live reaction.
Oh my god.
Oh, hey, what the fuck? Yeah. Oh, I take it you never read the antecedent before this,
yeah,
then.
the Order of the Mutineer is like for those who haven't read or don't remember, is like they're basically like a cult that believes that that Mindfang was actually like a revolutionary who all of the accounts lied about and was like a super cool person.
Ah, yes. Mindfang, a.k.a. Teach Me the Obscene, was such a great person.
Yeah, right.
Where were we? There one?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tizius. For what it's worth, I appreciate everything you did for Karkat and the rest of us.
She snapped her fingers, and in that split second, Tizius knew with every fiber of her being that she needed to be on the ground. She threw herself down, hitting the stone pathway hard and rolling to one side. In the same moment, there was a flash of light, and the feeling of energy crackling and tearing through the air where she'd just been. Nearby, something hit one of the monuments and splintered the stone, sending shards raining down over where Tizius had landed. She rolled and shoved herself back up, shaking from what had just happened. Terezi was already running away. And 10 yards in front of her, gossamer wings shining in the pale blue light cast by the dice clutched in her fingers, was the last person she would have expected to see. Vriska Circuit smiled grimly, raised her hand in front of her face, and muttered in a voice that Tizius could barely make out over the ringing in her ears.
I'm sorry. Y'all feel any particular need to catch me up on what the fuck is happening? Skyla had shifted and was sitting back now. There wasn't much need to keep kneeling if their former captors were now lying in a series of multicolored splatters in the dark tarmac. Polypus shrugged and looked out over the carnage that had been wrought in a matter of seconds.
Other than the obvious, no idea. Doesn't look like Connell is here, huh?
Skyla shrugged, and for a minute, Polypa thought she saw something in her eyes. Had those two been pitched for each other? Trying to actually kill each other might put a damper on that. Who's this? Is this supposed to be Skyla?
This is Skyla.
Wasn't Vriska that one who was killed during the session? I never really talked to her. Polypa nodded thoughtfully.
Yeah, Tizius told me. Killed by Terezi.
The source for this belief is just vague speculation? Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Pretty much. It's like all those people who look at Vriska and think, oh, look at how cool she is. I bet she's a revolutionary.
It was like taking the, like, Vriska's an uwu baby opinion and making it into an actual, like, political movement.
Yeah. Oh, God. Imagine the timeline where Vriska as an uwu baby became a political party.
Yeah, this is that.
Yeah.
This is that timeline.
Well, I'm talking about in the real world.
Oh, in the real world. That's horrible. I don't like that thought.
The Vriska party.
No, we're not doing that.
We're not doing that.
All right.
Polypa nodded thoughtfully.
No. This
So this is... Skyla trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, and Polypa shrugged.
No fucking clue.
She settled back onto her butt, then lay down on her back and stared up at the dark skies overhead. With the way things were going, they were looking like a long hike back to the city, especially given that it didn't seem like the IRB was especially trustworthy. It was starting to make a lot of sense, knowing that their director of operations was a corrupt bastard. Philippa closed her eyes. The first thing she thought of all possible things, was Chixie. She hoped that the bronze blood had gone home and tried to get some sleep. She hoped that Chixie was considered so insignificant by the IRB and Terezi that she wouldn't even register. After all, she was protesting the United Earth Empire, not working against the IRB. Whether or not any of this made a bit of sense, Philippa couldn't say, but she would desperately hope. It would hurt too much now, to reconcile, to only have that ripped away from her in a way that was inescapably permanent. She could remember the soft feeling of Chixie leaning up against her, all those times they laid in bed together, skin pressed to skin with nothing in between. It was a pleasant memory, and a damn sight better than the current reality of being pressed up against the cold tarmac in the freezing March night.
This fucking sucks,
she muttered without opening her eyes.
At least your spinal column didn't have to knit itself back together.
Philippa's eyes snapped open as she was staring up at a distinctly not dead Kanaya Merriam. For some reason, it hadn't fully registered before that Kanaya was actually alive, so her first impression was one of shock. Kanaya's clothing was splattered with jade blood, and there was still a faint scar on the front of her neck where the bullet punched its way out. Kanaya returned Philippa's gaze evenly.
Oh yeah.
Honestly, I would say you're in a worse position than I am. As I said before, I'm the only one who might bounce back.
She giggled a little. This was a joke she'd been saving for a bit.
Yeah, you mind explaining that one?
Philippa shifted her gaze away from Kanaya and back to the night sky.
I'm a rainbow drinker. Not something I widely advertise, nor is it information that Vriska or Terezi were aware of previously. Now, turn over and let me cut you loose.
The source is, I made it the fuck up and she's my meow.
I forgot that I put Philippa and Chixie together. That's a rare pair.
Yeah, oh, that's a real rare one.
That's another one I don't think anyone else ships. Also, the fact that Kanaya, they never knew she was a rainbow drinker because all this shit with Erida never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And murder stuff didn't happen.
How did Kanaya find out, though?
I don't fucking know.
Because in canon, she finds out because
when
she
dies,
is resurrected.
I don't fucking know. They never explained that.
Then again, did Porum find out she was a rainbow drinker without dying? Maybe it just happens when you hit a certain age.
Yeah, I don't know. She had 10 years to figure that shit out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or maybe she suspected. I don't know.
Philippa rolled over onto her stomach, and Kanaya bent over to cut the cord that was binding her hands together. Once she was free, Philippa turned back over and sat up, rubbing her wrists and groaning.
Is there anyone who does know?
Kanaya shook her head.
No. Daria and Bronya perhaps suspect something. There are certain subtle signs that another Jade might recognize. I think that Daria would keep quiet about it, and Bronya has other things in her mind the last few years. I suspect they are also both a little bit afraid of me.
Yeah, I can't imagine why that would be.
Philippa finally pushed herself up, stretching her legs out and shifting her neck back and forth to work out the cramp that had been building up in her neck. Kanaya was already in the process of freeing Skyla.
How's Vriska alive? I thought the rainbow drinker shit only applied to Jade Bloods.
Kanaya gave a short laugh.
Vriska's no rainbow drinker. She's something else. And she was definitely dead. I saw her body myself.
Yeah, so did I. Terezi killed Vriska and you killed Eridan. Why, exactly?
Terezi had a vision as the seer of mind.
Kanaya had helped Skyla to her feet and was currently grabbing weapons from the dead bodies of IRB agents. Members of the Order? Philippa figured there wasn't that much of a difference in the end.
Vriska was going to do something incredibly stupid to try to be a hero. To combine the dead body of the creature you killed on Karkat's planet with a being of near omnipotence. The result would have been disastrous.
And Eridan?
Kanaya smiled grimly before answering.
Was planning to betray a number of us to secure his place in this new world. It would have, according to Terezi, resulted in most of us dying.
Without saying anything more, Kanaya shoved an assault carbine into her arms, gleaned from one of the dead IRB agents.
Now, if we are quite done reminiscing, I believe it is time to secure an alternate means of transportation.
I still don't feel right about this, Tizia said quietly, huddled close to Daria, Stelsa, and Philippa. She was Karkat's age. She was one of his friends. I saw what happened when I was on the slab after I woke up again. Philippa glanced back over, toward where Kanaya and Terezi were standing next to each other, talking quietly. Neither of them looked even a little bit okay with what just happened. The whole situation was beyond fucked, basically. Yeah, I think we're basically all in the dark on this one, Daria interjected. I really doubt that Teresi is going to say anything to anyone about this. Stealth aside and interrupted. Maybe she'll talk to Carcat about it? Tizia shook her head and looked at each of them in turn. The thing is, I think that this had to happen. The things I saw when I went god tier, they were going to happen. They are going to happen. Philippa couldn't hold her tongue anymore.
Sure, just fucking kill another Wiggler, right? 6 sweeps is plenty of time to have become an irredeemable monster.
The sarcasm practically dripped off her tongue, and she could see the hurt in Tizius's eyes. I don't like this either, okay? My son's friend just killed my son's other friend because... Never mind, it's not important now, but we have to keep going. What else are we gonna do? It's not like we have anywhere we can go back to. She desperately wanted to say something, to scream at Tizius that she was wrong. There was always another way. Wasn't that at the heart of everything Tizius believed in? The idea that no one was truly beyond redemption? Even if she'd never been much for the Signless's beliefs before, Philippa was willing to admit that there was a certain comfort in them. After all, hadn't each of them done something unforgivable? Well, maybe not all of them, but she certainly had. They made a long circuit of the airfield, checking each of the temporary buildings on the way. Philippa wasn't surprised to find basically nothing. No secret plans or critical documents that would reveal the size and shape of the thing they were now facing head-on. It wouldn't make sense. This was an operational base and nothing more. Flight schedules in one of the buildings that confirmed what they already knew, and logs for fueling the helicopters, a duty roster that listed the names of the people that were now rapidly cooling on the tarmac. It was a waste of time, and time wasn't something they had a lot of. The last building was presumably the operational control center, by far the largest of the prefabs and the most well-equipped, with a series of computers and communications equipment. This time Philippa hung back while Skyla and Kanaya searched for anything useful. That was important, but she had something else important to do.
Chicks, where are you right now?
I'm at home. Is everything okay? You're on your way back?
You need to get out, like, now.
Okay, fine. I'm packing some shit. You mind telling me what's happening?
It's a long story, but bottom line is, IRB are bastards.
Yeah, no shit. Let me get ready. I'll call you. Hey, Polly, any idea why the fuck there's an IRB grab van outside my apartment? Philippa felt her blood run cold. She quickly dialed Chixie's number and put the phone on speaker while she quickly began to type a message to Tizius. The phone picked up and she heard Chixie's voice on the other end, scared, bordering on absolutely terrified.
What's happening? Is this the fucking order, people?
Oh wait, no, that's Chixie saying that.
What's happening? Is this the fucking order, people? Philippa could hear Chixie opening and closing drawers in the background, packing things hastily. I'm gonna head out the back. What the fuck?
Order and IRB are basically the same. Too much to explain, but you need to get somewhere safe. Tizzies, we got a fucking problem. Looks like someone's outside Chixie's place.
Okay, sure. Chixie's voice was shaking, but the sounds of slamming drawers had stopped. I'm gonna head to that hole in the wall I sang at a couple months ago. They'll let me crash in the back for a bit. Don't like cops much. Philippa sighed into the phone and closed her eyes tightly.
Good. Chixie, please stay safe.
Was she really about to say this? After everything?
I love you. I'm sorry for everything before.
Chixie sighed on the other end of the phone and replied, Maybe not quite ready for that, Polly, but can we talk about this when this is over? I care about you. Stay safe.
I can live with that.
She was about to say more, but on the other end of the phone she heard a sharp bang and the sound of the phone hitting the ground. The line went dead. The world collapsed in on her, the same way it had when she pulled the trigger that one faithful day.
Chixie?
There was no answer. Shoving the phone back into her pocket, Philippa looked up at Kanaya and narrowed her eyes.
Are we fucking done? Because some shit's happening back in town we should probably be there for.
It was Skyla who answered, her voice low and even, soothing. We found an inventory sheet. Looks like they have a couple small motorboats. We find those, we can probably get back to the city. It'll take a couple hours, but it's the best we can do. Before she could think about what she was doing, Philippa took a step and grabbed the collar of Skyla's shirt. Even she could hear the panic rising up in her voice.
No, we don't have a couple hours. I can't get through to Tizius, and someone just attacked Chixie. We have no idea what's happening. We can't fucking trust anyone. We need to get back now.
Skyla didn't snap at her, didn't yell, just gently put a hand on Philippa's and pulled it back from her collar. What do you want to do? None of us knows how to fly a helicopter. Our only other option is walking back or running. Running the risk of calling for backup from an agency that we can't trust. We don't have a lot of options. Philippa let her go, and all the anger rushed out of her, replaced with a flooding sense of hopelessness.
I know, but I think something horrible just happened. If it's any help...
Kanaya interrupted.
I'll have Tagora go see what's going on. Gorjek?
Philippa stared at Kanaya as if she'd suddenly sprouted an extra set of arms.
That greedy bastard? That greedy bastard owes me his life.
Kanaya said firmly.
And despite his reputation, he takes his debts extremely seriously. Besides, Titius is his kismesis, and that means something to him, in spite of what he might say to the contrary.
It was a horrible plan. The best options they had were all bad at this point. A slow trip back to the city, and then having to contend with the fact that the largest imperial agency in the whole empire was thoroughly infiltrated. The only major advantage they had was...
They don't know we're alive, do they?
Philippa said quietly.
As far as anyone knows, they killed all of us.
Kanaya nodded, already moving toward the door.
That is correct. We have a 2-hour trip back to try to learn everything we can without tipping our hand, so I would suggest we get underway immediately.
With one last look around the room, Philippa slung her carbine onto her shoulder. Her insides were a boiling mass of anxiety at what she'd heard on the phone, desperately hoping Chixie had been able to get out in time, desperately hoping that Chixie was at least alive, worrying about what Tisius was doing and how they were going to even begin to approach any of this. If she kept letting that feeling dig down inside, it would eventually eat her alive. She'd be useless to anyone. So Philippa took a deep breath and did the same thing that she had so many times in service of the rebellion. She put her feelings aside and started thinking about what to do next. I'm wondering how many chapters we have left.
6 after this. Well, 6 total.
Or 7.
7, yeah.
Huh.
And I think the last one is a short chapter.
Tisius had only ever fired her gun in training.
Oh,
What?
questions. Where on Earth is this set? She has been firmly lodged itself upon the pan.
It is set in New York. So it's set in a version of New York that has... in this timeline, some of the trolls came to Earth in, like, the 1500s and had an impact on world events. And part of the sort of aftermath of that was that the U.S. was never colonized by the British.
Yeah, it's colonized by the Dutch.
It was colonized by the Dutch because that had already happened. But, like, it was a combination of, like, the Dutch and then, like, the native population. So, like, you'll see stuff that has, like, the native, you know, terms for things and then the Dutch terms for things. But it's based on the general layout of New York City, but with, like, you know...
What did you end up calling New York?
It's New Amsterdam.
Right, New Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Amsterdam, of course.
Yeah, and there's like an
York is
Alternian community within New Amsterdam.
Gorgor, I love that guy for some reason. He's like the worst person, but a very interesting character. I'm sure we've told you about the Tagora's law office that's down
Oh
the street.
yeah, the fucking
There's a money laundering looking accident lawyer.
It's got a
on
giant
corner.
shiny dollar sign.
It's a holographic rhinestone dollar sign in the window. This whole place screams Tagora.
Also, hold on, I'm gonna check my DMs.
Anything important?
No, it's well, yeah, but it's Jojo.
How are y'all doing tonight? It's been a while since we've done a stream. We haven't done one since the Undertale streams I did this summer. I want to stream more. It just gets a little tricky because we gotta do it from Jonaya's place because my computer's not really great for streaming. And
Yeah.
I'm not at Jonaya's place quite as often as I'd like, and I'm only really able to go over to Jonaya's place in the middle of the week because I teach on the weekends.
Normally you teach on the weekends, but this week
it's Lunar New Year,
Lunar
so
New Year,
my teaching job is closed for the weekend. So I don't have to be up at 7 a.m. to get to my job tomorrow, which is a nice break, but I need the money.
Yeah.
I wish that I was guaranteed money even on the days off.
That would be nice.
I wish that I had enough to pay rent every single month, but this month is super, super, super light.
That sucks. Boop. Hey.
Hmm.
Alright.
All
Can I
right.
keep going?
Yeah.
Tisius had only ever fired her gun in training. Qualifications are supposed to happen every year, but no one really questioned you much as an agent in charge, and it had been a solid 2 years since she was on the range. She hated them. Hated the way that they sounded and smelled and reminded her of a time and a place long ago. Of a blood-soaked warehouse? She couldn't remember now.
I'm sorry.
There was something genuinely hurt in Vriska's eyes. Maybe some part of her realized that this was wrong. Something that cared more about her tenuous friendship with Karkat than all of this. But that something was deeply buried. She raised her right hand, clutching the dice that Tisius had only seen a few times before. She'd heard more stories about them than anything else. Tisius had never fired a gun at another person before in her life. In an instant, she was back there, the rust smell of dozens of trolls being mowed down by the drones, the primal fear that drove her, the terror that she would never see Stelsa again.
Wait, is the blood-soaked warehouse
That's
the
Chixie That's the answers to questions of the question of Revolution. Yeah,
nice.
I know that the canon is a little like disconnected now with Daria's punk band AU, but like that part at least I guess is canon.
And the existence of DPB is still in line with the Progeny.
Yeah.
Speaking about DPB, have you all seen the new DPB song that came out recently?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you did. With our brand new Chixie. Because sometimes your Chixie VA gets testosterone.
Goes on T
which is really, really, really great.
And their voice drops.
But it means that I had to find a new treble voice.
Her hand swept behind her coat and grabbed the compact pistol from its holster, drawing it clear in a single motion and bringing it up. In the same motion, her thumb dropped the safety off.
Line up the sights.
She aimed by instinct at the first thing that came to mind and squeezed the trigger. The pistol barked once, and Vriska's right hand exploded into a swell of bright cerulean gore. The hollow point round tore through the bone and tendons and ripped away a chunk of the hand on its way out. Vriska howled in pain and doubled over, her bravado broken in an instant as she fell to her knees. Tisius didn't wait to see what happened next, to see how much of her god-tier powers Vriska had retained. Instead, she jumped to her feet and ran off between the monuments, leaving behind Vriska, still screaming in pain, and Terezi running over to her Moirail's side.
You fucking bitch!
It sounded like Vriska, screaming, howling into the night after Tisius. She didn't stop running, dodged from alabaster stone with her... stone to alabaster stone with her head down, not even bothering to look back. She turned sharply, then headed straight toward the side of the memorial park, where the pavement of the park met with a low stone wall that surrounded it. It was maybe 4 feet high, not that much. Tisius crouched down as she ran, hit the wall, and uncoiled into a jump that took her high enough to get her arms solidly onto the top of the wall, clutching and scrambling not to fall back.
Fuck,
she shouted, kicking her feet against the wall and clawing at the top as she started to slide back.
Fuck!
Behind her, she was sure that Vriska and Terezi were already after her, already moving to find her, and she needed to be on the other side of the wall. This part of the memorial park was elevated above the sidewalk, and it dropped down 10 feet on the other side of the wall, enough to hide her from view until she could escape onto the streets. Tisius held her breath and dug her feet against the rough brickwork of the wall, seeking any purchase she could find. She pushed up, managed to slip up to her armpits, and struggled to lift herself, one leg over the side of the wall. She rolled her weight, and she was on top of the wall, staring down at the drop on the other side. Rolling again, Tisius slid her legs out over the side and dropped down, hanging onto the edge of the wall until the last possible second, then letting herself drop down onto the other side. Her feet hit the concrete, and she crouched down, blunting the impact of the fall. The memorial park had dropped out of sight behind the wall, but it wasn't much comfort. If Vriska could still fly. Tisius turned and ran straight along the wall, keeping herself out of sight on the side of the memorial park, where the line of sight inside was cut off. Her car was close enough that she could make it before they realized what had happened. She bent her head low, leaned forward, and ran as fast as she could. Either they weren't following her, or they weren't sure exactly where or they weren't sure where to go exactly, because Tizius managed to reach her borrowed car without any sign of a pissed-off Teal or a cerulean with the powers of a demigod chasing after her. She opened the door and jumped into the seat, quickly starting the engine and pulling away from the curb, driving away from the Memorial Park. She scrambled to pull her phone out, glancing down at it, looking for a notification from Daria. A single line burning on the screen.
Drinking spot.
That was it. A single line on the screen with nothing before or after. It didn't matter. It was enough. Tizius kept driving, merging into traffic as she pulled onto the roads that ran along the south of the island and back north again. She knew exactly where to go. 6 months she'd been on Earth already. 6 months that felt like no time at all. And paradoxically, had felt like the longest 3 months of her entire life. After the first month, she and Daria had established a tradition. The two of them would both meet up in a small park in the New Alternian district on a Friday night. They would get absolutely falling over drunk together. It was a chance to spend time with her Moirail, a chance to bond, and a chance to remember.
It's just weird that no one really expects me to work here, you know?
Daria's voice was already a little bit slurred, but she had been taking it easy so far, passing a bottle of cheap whiskey back and forth with Tizius and taking a sip at a time. It was her turn with the bottle, so she took her sip and passed it back. Tizius stared down at it. She hadn't actually been drinking much that evening. There had been too much on her mind lately.
Yeah.
Daria leaned in and elbowed her in the ribs.
What's with you tonight? I'm just, I don't know, feeling down?
Daria laughed and elbowed her again.
You're always feeling down, mostly. Except when you light up around Stelsa.
She winked and laughed, reaching for the bottle.
If you're not gonna take your sip, I'll take it.
Tizius handed her the bottle and sighed, looking out over the water, up at the distant bridge that connected one island to another.
There's something I've been thinking about. Something I didn't tell you before. Oh? Well, we're Moirails, so you tell me whenever you want. Now. I think that'd be now. Yeah. Something happened when I went God tier. I got this flash of visions all at once. Stuff that had already happened, and some of it that hadn't. Well, shit, that's cool as fuck. Wish I'd God tiered.
She flexed her injured hand and smiled.
Would have been nice to maybe have this get magically fixed.
She remembered the feeling of the suffocating feeling of dying.
It's not all it's cracked up to be. That's not the point. The point is, I saw the same thing right after I came to Earth. I thought all your powers went...
She made a poof motion with her hands, and Tizius nodded solemnly.
Yes, but not before this one flash of vision. And what I saw...
She shivered. The city's on fire. The meteors raining down death from the heavens.
I think that the cycle is starting all over again.
Daria put the bottle down and stared at Tizius, her face suddenly losing the cheerful irreverence it had just had.
Wait, you're saying that the Sagrub thing can start again?
Tizius nodded.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It had been a while since she and Daria had met up to drink and remember, or drink and forget. Ever since she'd started working with Terezi, the two of them had drifted. Still Moirails, still working together, but it felt like something had come in between them. They'd never really talked about it, but Tizius thought that, in her heart, she knew why. Things had changed for all of them. The same thing that drove a wedge between her and Malik and Chixie and Palipa. She missed that time they spent together. Missed it more than she would ever care to admit. Stelsa had always been supportive, and her relationship with Tagora filled a certain need in her life, but her relationship with Daria, as Daria's Moirail, had always kept her balanced out. They'd been through hell together, again and again. She knew it was the only reason that Daria had agreed to work with her while she worked with Terezi and the IRB. Still, after all those years, she knew where she'd find Daria. Toward the back of the park, tucked out of view of the street, on a specific bench with a view of the bridge. There she was, her Moirail sitting next to a terrified-looking Branya. Daria stood as soon as she saw Tizius walking forward with a deep-set frown on her face. Tizius was about to say something, about to explain that she was sorry for everything that was happening, and she was doing everything she could to make things right, and Daria wrapped her into a hug, pulling her into an embrace that was just as warm as she remembered. It had been years since they'd ever even really been close to each other. Years since they'd touched, certainly.
This feels nice, after everything. Tiz, you fucking dumbass.
Daria muttered, leaning up against Tisius' shoulder and holding her close.
You don't know how to stop getting into this shit, huh?
She didn't want to leave this, didn't want to let go and keep talking. If she kept holding Daria, then time would stop and nothing would matter. She could stay like this forever and nothing would hurt her anymore. Terezi and Vriska and their bizarre cult wouldn't matter, wouldn't even exist. Everything would be okay.
Nothing is okay. We need to talk, Daria.
Daria let go and stepped back. There was a look of intense concern written all over her face.
Yeah, I know. Branya has something to share with the fucking class, I think.
Tisius turned her attention to the other Jadeblood, who was sitting nervously on the bench and fidgeting with her hands.
Oh? Is that true, Branya?
Branya was older than her by a bit, but right now she looked like a scared little wriggler who'd just been caught sneaking out of the caverns.
What is it? Yeah, you're not gonna believe this shit,
Daria said quietly.
You just gotta hear it for yourself. Hey, Bron, just rip the fucking Band-Aid off for her. She looks like she's had a rough night.
Branya sighed and shuffled her feet.
Vriska Circuit is alive.
Tisius stared at her. She couldn't even pretend to be surprised. Branya's eyes went wide, and she kept glancing from Tisius to Daria, then back to Tisius.
Daria already told you?
There was confusion in her voice, and Tisius almost wanted to laugh. The fucking irony of this all.
No, she didn't. I met Vriska earlier, when she tried to kill me. Tried to?
Branya's eyes went wide.
Oh, I'm sorry!
Daria walked over and sat down next to Branya, patting her on the shoulder.
You should tell her the rest, okay? I don't think she knows that part, unless Vriska decided to give her some backstory.
Tisius sat down...
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Up. Is that high? Too high?
Yeah. I don't know where it is.
Where did I go? Boop, boop, boop. Boop, 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 boop. I think I went in the wrong direction.
Yeah, you did.
I am used to backward scrolling.
It doesn't scroll backwards.
There we go.
Where is it? Oh, yeah.
Tizzy
Tisius sat down next to them and sighed heavily, leaning back and closing her eyes. Of course this was happening. Of course Branya knew something. Of course nothing could ever just be the way it looked on the surface.
No, she was mostly focused on the part where she tried to kill me. What do you have to say? I'm not sure where to start.
Branya muttered.
How the fuck did you know she's alive? How did you find that out? Did Terezi contact you or something?
Even in the dark, Tisius could see Branya's face flushed deep green.
I was the first one who first found her.
Tisius didn't expect anything Branya could say would genuinely surprise her, but that did.
You what? What the fuck? I found her about a year after we arrived here. I was at the Southeast Territories main cavern at the time, learning about how the Alternian descendants raised grubs. I used to walk out by the ocean in the morning when it was cool.
Tisius narrowed her eyes.
Get to the fucking point. She had washed up on the beach, still in her god tier outfit. Everyone else, we all lost ours. I just had my regular clothes on when we arrived here, and all the powers were gone, but Vriska was... something was different.
Branya shifted and looked down at her feet.
I took her to the caverns and made sure she was okay, and then I got in touch with Terezi. I knew they were Moirails, and... Why? Why'd you contact Terezi and not anyone else?
Tisius demanded, hearing her own voice rising in pitch.
What the fuck were you thinking? Tiz.
Daria said quietly, putting a hand on Tisius's knee.
What was she supposed to do? It's not like Vriska actually did anything. You told me Terezi acted on her vision.
She was right. Vriska and Kanaya hadn't reacted to something... That's supposed to be Terezi. Terezi and Kanaya hadn't reacted to something that had already happened. They had attacked the problem preemptively. Terezi had slaughtered her own Moirail based on a vision and...
How did she survive?
Tisius asked. Branya shrugged.
I don't know. She didn't have much memory of what happened. Something about a clock and finding herself awake again, but everyone was gone. I think she figured out what happened and wanted to make sure it didn't happen again, so she stayed hidden. That's what she told me, anyway. So, Terezi knew? This whole time she knew?
Tisius couldn't believe it. But this secret had always been underneath every interaction she'd ever had with the woman she'd once thought of as Karkat's best friend.
God fucking damn it. Yes, she knew. She swore me to secrecy. Told me that she would help Vriska hide and never tell anyone. Look, I know how it feels to lose someone close to me. You know that.
There was a raw pain in her voice, a pain that hadn't dissipated even after more than a decade. How long it had been since she had lost her mate, Brett. But Branya wasn't done.
She just kind of disappeared after that. But then, Terezi reached out to me. She told me that she trusted me because I got it. Because of everything that happened with Lynera. Because if it had been just a little bit longer, then maybe things could have been different. Why would I want that to happen to anyone else, right? She said that I had kept what was her deepest secret, so she was going to trust me with her other one. The whole point of her Order of the Mutineer and everything else over the last 10 years.
Branya sighed and stopped talking, her breathing getting heavy and ragged. Theseus looked over to Daria, who shrugged.
Don't fucking look at me. She didn't tell me this part. Branya, I need you to tell me what's going on. Otherwise, I can't do anything.
Branya's eyes were wide when she responded.
She wants to overthrow Feferi and destroy the new empire. She wants to be the founder of a fourth revolution with Vriska at her side. She thinks she and Vriska can control Sagrub, using it against the empire without destroying the world in the process. She's been building up to it for years, planning.
The vision came rushing back, the city burning to the ground, the meteors that wouldn't stop, the whole world reduced to rubble.
She's wrong. It doesn't matter what powers Vriska held on to. They can't control this any more than I could harness a fucking tidal wave. I know!
Branya's tone was urgent, pleading, desperate.
That's why I'm telling you and Daria, because I trust both of you, and I need you to find a way to stop them.
Who will?
Who will?
Love.
My back is so stupid.
Aw. I'm sorry. Oh.
Oh, everything looking good over there?
Yeah, it just turned the screen off because it had been a minute.
Scotty Leona says DPB is canon in some way in every universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's no non-canon DPB. I mean, fuck. We basically made it so it slots in everywhere except true canon.
Yeah. I mean, that's just because true canon... Well, which part of it?
Hive swap, not friend-sim.
Yeah, well, Hive swap canon is different.
Yeah.
Because everything kind of unfolds differently in that.
Yeah, still makes me sad that all those DPB characters don't actually know each other in Hive swap canon.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I interpret it as the friend sim canon is the result of Mistpar's interference.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that changes significant things, which is, like, kind of why we did what we did with Friend Sim 2.
Yeah. Can I have you plug this in? It's at 10%.
Yes, I can.
Once we're done with this chapter, we'll probably have to go to grab it so I can look at the stream chat.
Okay.
Since you have the stream chat next to you, we can technically use that to monitor it.
But yeah, like the
Yeah, because Mistpar,
speaking about stream chat, we just got another chat.
Oh. Terezi, I must reiterate this. What the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah, seriously, like, this is a horrible plan.
Fucking Terezi.
Terezi and Vriska.
Well, just wait and see what happens with Terezi in the next one.
Oh, yeah, that's fun. Alright.
It was going to attract a lot of attention. A lot of potentially unwanted attention. For them to move through the city streets at 1 in the morning while fully decked out in tactical gear and carrying rifles. Fortunately, it was a thought that had occurred to all three of them before they left, and they arrived in a small inlet in Brooklyn with their rifles long since discarded in the ocean and service pistol that had been liberated from the fallen IRB agents back on Narragansett Field. As the boat bumped up on the shore, Philippa shifted nervously and adjusted the pistol against the inside of her belt. She'd spent the whole ride in trying desperately to get in touch with Chixie. The phone went directly to voicemail, and the messages remained unanswered. She tried to reach out to Theseus and Daria, but they weren't answering either. Everything felt wrong, like something was building up and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Finally, as they were stowing the boat and taking stock of their gear, she decided she needed to reach out to Malik. She wasn't going to risk a message being unread, so Philippa dialed his number and hoped for the best. 4 rings later, she heard his sleep-addled voice on the other side of the line.
Philippa, what is it? What's going on? Did the thing go okay?
He yawned heavily into the receiver.
Sorry I couldn't see all the way in. IRB agents insisted that they run the op center and sent me home before you even got there. No, it didn't go okay. It was an ambush.
She could hear him gasp and shift the phone.
What? What happened? Turns out the IRB might be... They're up to some shit. Terezi's directing the whole thing. Vriska's there. Wait, what? Did you say Vriska as in Vriska Circuit? She's dead.
Philippa closed her eyes and sighed. She was tired of having this conversation.
No, she isn't. No idea what she wants, but we got a feeling it's bad.
She glanced over at Kanaya, who was finishing her check of the boat and checking her phone.
They shot Kanaya. What? I'll explain later. I need you to do something for me. I assume you've hacked all our phones?
A long silence. She knew that he'd done it. He practically couldn't help himself. Finally, a muttered grunt of affirmation.
Good. Track mine and Kanaya's. Skylar's phone, too, if you have access. Just keep an eye on us, okay? Sure, but don't ask why. Just fucking do it.
She hung up the phone and walked back over to where Kanaya was standing with Skyla. The water glistened behind them, the city lights reflecting off the dull black surface and scattering with the ripples. It was freezing and would be hours before dawn even broke over the city. Philippa had a feeling it was going to be a long day. Also, it's so funny that Malik is he just can't keep himself from hacking his friends' fucking phones. What now? Skyla asked. What happened to her? To your maid spirit? Philippa didn't bother to correct her.
It's complicated. I don't know. But I'm going to her place now. If you both want to come with, that's fine. If not...
She shrugged. Whether or not they'd agreed to come with her, it didn't matter. She needed to know if Chixie was okay. Needed to know what happened. It was a good hour's walk from where they'd landed the boat to Chixie's Brooklyn apartment, and Philippa spent every second of it racked with anxiety over what might have happened. She tried again and again to reach Chixie on the phone or send her a message. Nothing. She tried Tizius and Daria a few more times. Nothing there either. Mostly, she just walked in silence with Kanaya and Skyla trailing behind her. They'd all agreed to do the best thing, that the best thing to do would be to check Chixie's place and go from there. Kanaya was sure that returning to MGI would be a bad idea, but she was able to get in touch with Tagora and they were figuring something out. At least that clever rat bastard was still okay. That was something that had been in Philippa's mind for a while, ever since the attack on MGI.
Hey, Kanaya?
She asked casually.
Why do you even trust Tagora? Has it occurred to you that he might be involved in all of this? He isn't.
She replied. There was a snap to her voice that made it clear that this wasn't a matter of open for discussion.
And I won't hear anything to the contrary. That's not fucking good enough. Miriam, stop fucking bullshitting me. We all almost died. Most of us don't get to come back from it the way you apparently do. So tell me, why do you trust this conniving piece of shit?
Kanaya sighed and rolled her eyes visibly at that.
Very well. I suppose you've earned some explanation.
She took a pause to collect her thoughts, then continued.
Tagora owes me his life. And if there's one thing he takes seriously, it's his connection to other people. Even if it's opportunistic and generally fueled by his desire to make money, he isn't going to betray people he's in debt to. An ethical fucking businessman. Sure. Can't say I understand why you trust him so much, though. This feels a little bit bigger than owing someone money. I agree, which is why I was getting to that part. You know that Tagore ended up on my land with me, a fellow space player, so I suppose that dictated his ultimate destination in some way. I engaged his services to assist with frog breeding, with the proviso that I would, to paraphrase slightly, owe him one.
That sounded about right, but didn't really explain anything. So far, all she was hearing was the same issue repeated. How did she know Tagora was trustworthy?
There was an incident. Tagora was mortally wounded by one of the creatures in my land we had not previously counted as a threat. It was quite unexpected. I made the decision to take him to my quest bed. I believed that if he died on the slab, that he would rise up again in his own god-tier form. This was something I had gleaned from personal experience.
That was news to her.
Wait, when did you god-tier?
Kanaya shrugged.
It was right after I agreed to help Terezi. I knew that Eridan would be formidable. I wanted every possible advantage, so I found my quest bed and made my decision.
She smiled softly.
As these things go, it was not the worst experience. Sure, I wouldn't know. So you dragged Tagora to the slab knowing what would happen?
Kanaya nodded to that, and the whole picture was becoming clearer and clearer.
I guess that makes sense. That's all there is. That's all there is. Sometimes the truth is exceedingly banal. Tagora recognized that I'd saved his life and kept his word, and I kept mine. when we came to Earth and involved ourselves with Terezi and Tisius's plan...
She stopped, and Philippa realized she'd been staring at Kanaya with a venomous look on her face.
I'm sorry. I know that is a sore subject for you. If it's any consolation, we genuinely believed it was for the best. And I genuinely was not aware of whatever this plan that Terezi and Vriska are carrying out. I was not, in fact, aware that Vriska was even alive. I know.
Philippa sighed and let the tension drain out of her.
I'm just worried about Chicks and pissed about everything that happened. Terrified that this is something beyond our control. A great many things are beyond our control. But here we are, trying to do what we can anyway.
Kanaya smiled at her, and in spite of everything, Philippa felt a little bit better. She hadn't expected to be fighting alongside Skyla again, and certainly not working with Kanaya. At least she wasn't doing this alone. That was one bright spot in the middle of all this darkness. Philippa smiled back.
Yeah, I know.
The outside of the apartment building that Chixie lived in was quiet. That was something that didn't sit well with Philippa at all. From the sounds on the phone, she'd assumed the IRB, or the Order, she supposed, had raided the place, but the building was sitting silent in the cold darkness of the pre-dawn winter night. They made a quick circuit of the building, looking for any of the IRB vans or any sign anyone was nearby. It was, surprisingly, clear. So either whatever had happened had already come and gone, or there was something else going on here. The three of them walked into the entrance cautiously, drawing their pistols as they walked into the building. Skyla was about to push one of the buttons on the intercom, but Philippa shook her head, reached into her pocket, and produced a key.
She let you keep the key, and you were really convinced she was done with you, huh?
She opened the outer door and let the others step in before allowing it to drift silently closed. The hallway inside was lit with a series of dim fluorescent bulbs that sometimes flickered and blinked in and out. It wasn't a glamorous place by any stretch of the imagination, but it was home. Well, had been home, once. Philippa winced.
Come on, it's on the 3rd floor.
She led them over to the stairs and began to climb up to the 3rd floor. It had been years now since Philippa had been here. Years since she climbed those stairs. A decade since she and Chixie had stopped on the 3rd floor landing and looked out the window at the gently falling snow and kissed for the first time.
She needs to be okay.
They hit the 3rd floor and Philippa opened the door, carefully peering out into the hallway. Nothing there. Same dim lighting from the same kind of bulbs as downstairs. Chixie's apartment was at the end of the hallway, off to one side of the floor. They crossed the distance soundlessly, and Philippa reached down to check the door. It had been forced open, and then closed again. That was obvious from looking at it. Philippa raised up her pistol and nodded to the others. In one motion, she opened the door and stepped into the apartment, rolling her step and looking down at the pistol. The lights were mostly off, but Philippa could see well enough. She went through the first open room of the kitchen, then back toward the bedroom. There was no sign of Chixie in the front room, but there were signs of a struggle. Broken plates on the floor and an overturned chair. In the bedroom in the back, Philippa saw her. Chixie was lying sideways on the floor, her hands tied behind her back, a piece of cloth shoved into her mouth. The bronze blood looked up, and made a muffled noise, and Philippa couldn't stop her from crying out.
Thank fuck you're alive.
She ran over and knelt down next to Chixie, quickly pulling the gag out of her mouth.
I'm so sorry, Chicks. I never meant to get you caught up in all...
Philippa, get out now!
What?
She stared at Chixie, who shook her head violently. Leave! They weren't coming for me! They were coming for you!
It was a contingency plan, in case we got away.
Philippa turned back to Skyla, who was standing by the doorway.
We need to leave.
She reached around and hauled Chixie to her feet, leaning in and whispering in her ear.
I'm not leaving you here.
Out into the hallway and back in the front room. It was only a short... Kanaya was there, with her hands high in the air. On the other end of the room, Connell was standing with 3 IRB agents. Slowly, Connell smiled.
Director wants a word with you. Something about a body count. Wanted to know what in the fuck is wrong with you.
She grinned and took a step forward.
If you don't mind, of course.
Hey, Stills, if you see this, I don't know. I'm sorry. I know it's late. I know things have been bad. I know you're worried about me. I wish I could tell you that things are okay, but that'd be a lie, and I don't want to lie to you. Or hide things. Shit's real bad. Terezi tried to kill me. Vriska's alive again, apparently. I know that's a lot to take in, but I'm tired. I don't know how else to tell you. Feeling really lost right now. Don't know what to do. I miss you. I wish I was just back at home right now. Wish none of this ever happened. This was supposed to be our chance to start again, and it's the same bullshit. Same mistakes, just a little bit different this time. Stills, if you see this, I love you. More than anything. I love you so, so much. Heart, blue, heart. Any new...
this is the greatest plan, and then compulsive hacking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a bad plan that I had.
Terezi's such a fucking idiot.
Oh, wait, this is my chapter,
yeah.
right? Sighing inwardly, Tizia slipped the phone back into her pocket and focused on the steering wheel in front of her. She'd been sitting in the driver's seat of Kanaya's car for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to do next. To figure out where they were supposed to go and what they were supposed to be doing when they got there. No matter how hard she stared, the answers kept eluding her, remaining just out of the reach somewhere in the darkness beyond the car's front window.
Tiz, what are we doing?
Daria asked, her voice soft. Tizius didn't know how to answer the question, and any time it felt like something was getting closer, it slipped away like she was trying to grab smoke in her fist. She was crying, her eyes burning as the tears flowed down her cheeks. From the seat next to her, Daria looked over, and her face filled with a concern that bordered on fear.
Tiz, we'll figure this out. You're alive. We're all alive.
She sniffled loudly.
Terezi doesn't want me dead. She wants me to help her. This is her version of the revolution. She wants to smash the system but put herself right there at the top.
Daria shook her head and sat back against the passenger seat.
It's fucking sick.
She still didn't know what to do. Everything she'd held on to for 10 years had been based on a series of intricately crafted lies. They were lies that played into her own visions, lies that manipulated her, and the whole time it had served the interests of someone who she thought she knew. Karkat's best friend, the woman who'd grown up with him and then fought so hard to keep them all alive during their session, who'd spent so much of herself to make sure that the new world was a kinder, more equitable place, based on the biggest lie of them all. Tizius closed her eyes and leaned over the steering wheel, groaning out loud and wishing desperately that she'd wake up and this would all be a dream. She'd be in Stelsa's arms, of course, and this insane world she was living in would be nothing more than an illusion. They'd created the new world, and it was fair and just, and everything was fine. She hadn't dumped a decade of her life into doing what was basically the same thing she'd done back on Alternia. If only any of that were true. She was in the middle of reaching up to wipe her eyes when the phone buzzed in her pocket. She reached in and grabbed it, staring at the screen through a bleary filter of her tears.
Cece, what's going on? First it was you, then I got a message from Karkat? I'm scared.
Karkat? What?
He said that Terezi contacted him out of nowhere and told him that Vriska's alive and it's important that they talk immediately. I haven't been able to get him to answer his phone.
Fuck, where did he go?
He didn't say. Cece, is he going to be okay? She won't hurt him, will she?
Fuck.
Tizius gripped the phone and stared down at the screen, completely ignoring Daria's concerned murmur from the passenger seat. Even as she was dialing Karkat's number and putting the phone to her ear, she could feel the shaking starting in earnest. It kept ringing. Finally, Karkat's voice on the other end. "Hey, this is Karkat and Tixesiet. Leave a message or don't." Tizius screamed into the nothing in front of the car.
Fuck! Karkat, you need to get the fuck out of wherever you are. Call me as soon as you get this. What am I supposed to do?
She had no idea where Terezi was, had no idea what was going to happen to Karkat, and Vriska was a completely unpredictable element.
Daria, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
She bent forward again and began to sob quietly.
I've made so many mistakes.
Daria leaned over the center console in the car and put her arms around Tizius, drawing her in as close as she could.
We'll figure it out, Tiz. We'll find Terezi and everyone else, okay?
Something in that pricked at Tizius's consciousness. And then it was there in full, like a light suddenly switched on. She opened her phone again, navigating the small screen around Daria's hug.
Malik, do you have tracking on any of our phones? Specifically Terezi or Karkat?
Wait, you're the second person to ask me something like that in the last couple hours.
Who? And where are they?
Palipa asked me to track her Kanaya and Skyla's phones, which is weird, because they all moved to a specific location, which, give me a minute. Oh yeah, fucking weird. Karkat is heading to the same location. They're all at the IRB field offices.
Of fucking course they are. Okay.
Theseus turned to Daria. The bottom was already dropping out of the world, tingling and prickling all up along her arms and neck.
I know where we're going.
She was going to walk right in the front door. Right into whatever trap Terezi had laid for her. Not because she was stupid or naive enough to assume that Terezi wasn't going to try anything, but because she didn't have a choice anymore. She'd tried so hard to keep her son out of this, to make sure that Karkat wasn't involved in the plan that she and Terezi had come up with in the first place. He was an advisor to Fefri's government, someone who could temper the potential of turning more and more into the kind of empire that Alternia had been. There was a time when she thought that would keep him safe, but she realized that had always been a lie. So, flanked by Daria and Branya, she swiped her ID badge and opened the double doors leading into the IRB field office's lobby. A man was sitting behind the counter. Theseus recognized him as the same one who'd been in the armory the day before.
Ma'am, you're here early. The director said to meet her up at the helipad on the roof.
That was it. No questions about the two people with her. No wonder about why she was here. Terezi had already told him to expect her, and expect her to have guests. She told him in the way that made it clear that this was a directive coming from the very top, and he wasn't supposed to ask questions. She stopped and stared at him, trying to see inside of how he felt about this, trying to see where his loyalties lay. Did he own a uniform with one of those blood-mottled eyes on it? Did he know what was happening from the beginning?
Ma'am, is everything okay?
You haven't been here long, have you?
She asked. The man looked around, an expression of absolute confusion on his face, and Theseus realized how accusatory her tone had been.
No, ma'am, I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong? Director Pyrope was very specific about everything.
No, it's fine. What exactly did she say to you? Do you remember her specific words?
He paused, and his eyes darted up for a brief second.
I don't remember. She said you'd be by sometime this morning, and you'd have a couple J-Bloods with you. Said to tell you she wanted to meet you up by the helipad and let you right through. That was it, I guess.
Suddenly his eyes lit up.
Oh, wait, sorry. She also told me to tell you specifically, tell her my offer still stands, whatever that means.
Thanks.
She muttered as she passed around the security checkpoint, followed by the other two. All the way to the back. All the way to the far elevator that required that she swipe her ID badge again and enter a 6-digit code into a keypad. Only then could she select the rooftop. For a moment, her finger hovered over the button, hesitating. She glanced up at Daria, who nodded silently. She pressed the button. There wasn't any big production that followed, just the software of the elevator as it began its ascent toward the roof. Theseus leaned up against the wall and closed her eyes, trying desperately to steady her increasingly ragged breathing.
Whatever happens, they can't continue this.
She said under her breath.
We need to stop them. They'll burn this world to the ground just to prove a fucking point.
Neither of the others responded. They already knew that Theseus was right. They'd all made the same mistake in different ways, making different assumptions that left different openings and created different blind spots. None of them ever saw the whole picture, but all of them assumed that they did. And each of them turning on each other, and the ones who'd been manipulating all of it kept the wheels turning in secret. In spite of everything, she couldn't bring herself to see Terezi as truly irredeemable. Maybe because she knew what it felt like to lose someone, even if that loss only turned out to be temporary. Maybe because she saw how much Karkat had cared about his friends, how much he'd wanted the best for all of them. She and Stelsa had wanted all of them to be able to finally live a peaceful life, finally free of everything that had haunted and pursued them through Alternia.
Except it just followed them here too.
She didn't realize she said it out loud until she felt Daria take her hand and squeeze softly.
I'm here for you. Me and Stels. Fuck, even Gorget cares in his own weird way.
She nodded. It wasn't much in the face of a situation that felt utterly insurmountable, but it was something. The rest of the ride was silence, until finally the elevator chimed to announce their arrival at the rooftop. Theseus rolled her shoulders back, took a deep breath, and stepped out onto the roof.
Can I have my phone so I can monitor the chat?
Yes, you can.
Ooh, be careful, don't pull the lamp.
There you go. What percentage is your battery now?
Oh, it's fine. It's good enough to... She's so smart, but so dumb. Yeah.
Ooh,
Ooh,
love.
I love you so much. This is the Sapphic part of the Sapphic Fanfiction Hour. You get to hear us be annoying.
We love you. You're very good. No stab.
I'm gonna stab you in your sleep.
You're the best.
You're my favorite.
My favorite.
Ow. Oh, ow.
You're back?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
If anybody has any suggestions for what to do for upper back pain, tell me. My body is falling apart.
Ugh.
All right. Also, I just realized.
What?
So, when we get to the next fic, there's 3 different perspectives, and 2 of them are characters I voice, and 1 is one that you voice. How are we going to split up the narration?
I don't fucking know.
Because next episode is going to be... next fic is going to be... there's the Karkat perspective, the Terezi perspective, and the Dariat perspective, right?
Yeah. Is there anything from Terezi's point of view?
Yeah, Terezi was one
Right.
of the, yeah. Karkat, Terezi, and Daria.
I was trying to think if there's any others. I think that's it.
There was
right?
just 3.
Yeah, okay.
No, the only one with like a ton of perspectives, that's the Abattoir series.
Abattoir has a bunch.
Abattoir has like
Plasticine
7.
Soul does too. Plasticine Soul's got like 8 POV characters. It rotates every chapter.
Hey, if we ever finish the Progeny trilogy, we can move on to doing a full Abattoir read through.
Yeah, I mean, Friends of Two started as an idea to make an Abattoir dub, technically,
Yeah,
sort of.
which never happened.
No, it never happened because the voice cast was more or less.
Yeah, all the
it was
people
Friends
who
of Two
were
cast.
like precast were all people from that Abattoir dub.
Well, Abattoir is about the length of the lineage, more or less. It's
Yeah.
like 124,000, 127,000 words. It's 127,000 words.
And
it's
then
longish. Unkind Sanctuary.
Scotty Leona says, "Wouldn't that be delightful?" But
That's a good. I like that story. It's good. It's just it's long. It's longer
yeah.
than this is by twice as
This
much.
sounds like a weird. This sounds weird, but lay on like a hard floor for like an hour. It'll work wonders on your back or make it feel worse. Like 50. You're not the only person that suggested a hard floor.
I've heard of that before.
Is there any part of your apartment that's a clean hard floor? Like a hard floor that your cats haven't shat on at some point? This girl has a cat who loves to poop.
He likes pooping on the floor.
Zero is the cutest kitty in the world. He loves to poop. He poops so much.
He really likes to shit. Like he takes so many poops all the time.
The other day, I walked into her bathroom, and her other cat was there just playing with a poop.
Yeah, a big fucking poop.
Her cats poop so much, the litter box has to be cleaned multiple times a day.
So annoying. He loves to shit. Alright, anyway.
You guys don't have to hear about cat shit too much.
It's fine. This is your chapter to read, right?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Trixie was staring down at the ground, avoiding Polipa's gaze, and shuffled forward. I didn't have time to warn you. They just broke down the door and... Polipa leaned in and pressed her cheek up against Trixie's cheek.
It's not your fault. Okay, this is sweet, but now it's time to go.
Connor interrupted. The mass of olive blood was tapping her foot and looking increasingly impatient. Polipa tried to take stock of everything in the moment, checking where everyone was standing and what possible options she had. If she tried to run, there was no way she'd be able to make it anywhere before they were all cut down.
At least let me untie her hands.
Scotty Leona says, the cat is a factory for poop.
Yeah.
Thought you were about to say you also have a cat who poops.
No,
factory for poop. Yeah.
He's a little poop factory.
One of my roommates has a cat who does the exact same thing, but it's worse because his poops are liquid.
He has diarrhea, yeah.
So at least Zero has normal
Zero
poops.
has, like, mostly solid poops.
When my back's fried up, I sit on an air mattress for a night and it helps. Ooh, I can't imagine an air mattress being good, though.
I have an air mattress in my car.
I don't want to try the air mattress. I'd rather just lie on the plain floor because...
I feel like that's very subjective.
Yeah. Hello, T-Man. Thank you for showing up.
Hey, welcome. I think we're going to get through this one tonight.
Yeah.
24, 25, 26, 27. 27 is a short chapter.
Nice. Yeah, we can totally get through this.
That's like an epilogue. Alright, anyway.
Polipa said. That seemed acceptable enough to Connell, because she shrugged and moved towards Chixie. Is that Connell? I think that's Connell.
Yeah, it's Johnny. Oh wait, no, this is a Connell line.
Yeah.
Go for it. But first, I need all of you three to drop your pistols and kick them over. Don't try to tell me you don't have them. And if anything goes wrong, remember that this little bronze songbird is getting the first bullet.
Reluctantly, Polipa reached back into her holster and slowly pulled the pistol out by the grip, being careful to make it clear she wasn't planning to turn the weapon on her new heavily armed friends. The gun went down on the floor, and she kicked it over to Connell, who nodded her thanks without another word. Once more, Polipa leaned close to Chixie and dropped her voice to a whisper.
Let's get your hands free. Don't say anything, but we have a plan. Kind of. We have a vague structure of a plan. That's about it.
Chixie leaned into her cheek, turned slightly, and kissed her softly. I trust you. 30 minutes earlier.
Tagora, wake yourself up. We need to talk.
Kanaya had finally managed to get Tagora to answer the phone. Polipa had been walking alongside her and worrying more and more that she wouldn't be able to get in touch with him in time. There was so much that could go wrong, and they needed at least one level of contingency.
I don't care.
Kanaya snapped into her phone.
I need you to do something. It's important.
Every gap in the conversation, Polipa found herself imagining the other side of it. The responses that Tagora was giving her, he would be making excuses, not because he was incompetent or even because he didn't see the value in helping them, but because he had just almost died and Tagora didn't seem like the sort to do well with facing death constantly. Kanaya sighed.
Yes, I understand that. I am sorry.
A long pause, and Kanaya's face fell just a little.
We would ask Theseus, but she is unfortunately out of communication currently.
Polipa had often found herself wondering what the exact nature of the relationship between Theseus and Tagora. Not that she didn't understand their kismesitude, but they seemed to have an immense amount of begrudging respect for each other on top of it. She supposed there was no way that someone like Theseus would let someone into any of her quadrants without that being there. And in spite of how much of an absolute asshole he could be, Tagora was cunning and he was weirdly loyal. She had no idea why, but there it was. Whatever Tagora had said must have been to Kanaya's liking, because she nodded curtly.
Good. I need you to go back to the office. Use the back way in. You know where I'm going with this.
Turning away from one side of their conversation that she could hear, Polipa looked over at Skyla, who was walking in silence with her head hunched. Another person she'd drifted away from. Another friend that she'd once been close to, now just another one of the names that had ended up on the other side of the divide, driven between her and Theseus. Skyla must have noticed her staring, because the bronze blood's head lifted, and she turned slowly to look at Polipa. Y'all got something to say? A day ago, Polipa wasn't sure what she would have said. Maybe she would have blamed Skyla for all of this, for being on the wrong end of things, the same way she blamed Theseus for selling them all out, for putting herself inside of a system that had so many echoes of what Alternia had once been, but that felt unfair now.
I was wrong to push you away like that.
Skyla sighed and shook her head, her eyes flitting from meeting Polipa's gaze to staring at the ground. Nah, you weren't wrong. It wasn't a good outcome. I went to work for the IRB because I trusted Theseus. Theseus went because she trusted Terezi. Look how that turned out.
Yeah.
She wasn't even sure how to respond to that. Seeing Terezi at the head of all this hadn't been something she'd expected. Even though she never fully trusted the Teal, Polipa never believed she would be so open. She would so openly and blatantly work against them like this. Theseus is gonna be hurt. Skyla's voice was soft. There wasn't any malice or judgment in it, just a deep compassion. Hell, I'm hurt. I reckon it'll be worse for her. She knew Terezi a long time. Looks like not as well as she figured.
Yeah.
In front of her, Kanaya finally hung up the phone, slipping it back into her pocket. She cracked her knuckles absently, fidgeting with her long fingers and shifting nervously as she walked. Finally, after a minute of silence, she spoke.
Tagore has agreed to return to MGI headquarters to retrieve a certain contingency package that he and I stored there. Well, I never imagined that Terezi would do this, nor that Vriska was ever even still alive.
She drew in a deep breath, let it out slowly.
I will not lie and say that we saw no possible problems arising with our arrangement with the IRB or the Empire. We have a plan in place. It is not much, but it is something.
Philippa and Chixie is a good pairing. Part of the olive to bronze tradition.
Yeah,
which is very true. Got Philippa and Chixie, got Connell and Skyla.
Mm-hmm.
Any other bronze olive pairings?
In this story?
In general?
Mm. I think off the top of my head.
Oh, the only other bronze is Vicare, and we all know our opinions on Vicare.
No one ships him with Philippa or any of the other olive bloods anyway.
Nah.
I've seen him shipped with like.
I just don't think about Vicare, like, ever.
That's fair. He's in Abattoir or Unkind Sanctuary, one of the two.
What did he do in that?
He's like a transport pilot in that. There's like everybody in those.
Right.
He's not like a huge character, but he's in there.
Oh, he's also not a huge character in Friend Sim 2, and is also a transport pilot.
He's got more dialogue than Falco does.
That's true.
He's got more dialogue than a couple of characters. He just spread out.
No one ships him, period.
And,
yeah.
No, there's
some people.
There's some people who really like Vicari, and there's like...
He had a surprising amount of auditions. Like, a majorly surprising amount of auditions.
Yeah, I think that's good voice auditions.
One of the IRB agents led the way back to the hallway, followed by all their captives. Behind them, the rest of the IRB agents and Connell trailed along, weapons at the ready. There was no chance of doing anything to get away. Even if Kanaya could recover from being shot, it was something that would take her out of commission for a bit. The rest of them wouldn't even be so lucky. They'd be mowed down before they could even take 2 steps.
Where precisely are you taking us?
Kanaya's voice was even, without a single crack to betray how she was really feeling. From behind them, Connell laughed.
Nosy, I told you, director wants a word. We're going to see the director.
The agent leading the way opened the door to the stairwell and began to lead them all up after him, all the way to the very top of the stairs. The only place left to go was the door to the roof. The agent opened that door too. The building's maintenance staff hardly ever locked the damn thing, and they walked out single file to stand in the middle of the tar paper and gravel surface of the rooftop, shivering in the early morning cold. Connell cleared her throat loudly.
Stand your asses here and wait. Chopper's gonna come pick us up to go see the director. I'll leave your hands free, but if you try anything...
Kanaya laughed at that.
What would we do? Flap our wings and fly away?
Oh, you're funny.
Connell said with a laugh that sounded genuinely amused.
I can see why the director wanted to keep you alive. Now, have a fucking seat and wait.
Philippa settled down on the gravel, covering on the roof, next to Chixie, and leaned back to back against her. Leaning her head back over the shoulder of her, Philippa wasn't sure what they were anymore. Matespritz felt presumptuous, but she wasn't sure. If it matters, I never stopped trusting you, Chixie said in a voice too quiet for the others to hear. Philippa closed her eyes and leaned her head over, resting the side of hers against Chixie's, right behind her horns.
Thanks. I don't know what it's worth now, though. I don't have a plan. I don't, but I think Kanaya does.
1 hour earlier. What now? What happened to her, to your Matesprit? Skyla's tone said a lot that wasn't there directly. The worry that something truly horrible had happened, the need for answers, to have some idea of what they were all supposed to do now. Philippa didn't have those answers, no more than any of them did.
I don't know, but I'm going to her place now. If you both want to come with, that's fine. If not...
She trailed off, not wanting to have to finish the sentence. She didn't have to. Skyla walked over and clapped her on the shoulder. You know I'm not just gonna leave you to this. Maybe things weren't ideal, but after everything we've been through, y'all think I'm just gonna leave you?
No, I guess not.
Philippa felt her face burn against the cold. But Skyla wasn't done talking. Now, Mad, I'm still as mad as a rabid bark beast about what happened. She stopped and her face fell. But I suppose you are too.
If you two are quite done...
Kanaya interrupted, her voice sharp and crisp in the night air.
I believe that we have quite a lot to attend to.
Easy for you to say. We just got flipped over by everyone who thought was on our side. Skyla said angrily. She pointed a thumb at Polypa. At least this one had the sense not to trust anyone. But there was something in Kanaya's face, a kind of light in her eyes.
Indeed. There is, perhaps, one other thing we can do. You see, there is a reason why the IRB had to take my company by force.
She smiled. It was a smile full of the pain of betrayal, but also one that said this wasn't wholly unexpected to her.
I, perhaps, did not trust the situation fully. I have, perhaps, taken some measures to correct for this kind of eventuality.
In the distance, Polypa could hear the sound of the helicopter rotors growing louder and louder. Soon, she'd be able to make out the forms of the incoming aircraft in the darkness, their bulk casting a shadow in the light-polluted sky that called attention to itself in the sheer absence of something to focus the eye on. On the other end of that would be a meeting with Terezi, another encounter with Vriska. Whatever happened after. Whatever Kanaya's plan was, it was looking more and more like the circle of things she could control was shrinking down further and further. At this point, there was only really one thing left, what she chose to say and who she chose to say it to.
Chicks, I need to tell you something before they get here.
Chixie didn't say anything back, but leaned in close and settled her back against Polypa's. It was comforting, the kind of comforting she'd been running after for years. Every person she slept with, every warm body filling a space in her bed, had just been another attempt to get back to that feeling. It was amazing how easily it all came back, how much she wanted this, needed this.
This is a shitty place for this, but I don't know if we're coming out of this alive, so... Chicks, I know you said you weren't ready for me to say, you know.
It's fine, Chixie said quietly. I'm not ready, but it's complicated. I don't hate you. I wanted you to stay with me. I wanted you to be able to open up to me.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. I got so caught up in trying to deal with everything myself that I lost sight of the support I had.
She was starting to tear up, starting to feel the moisture in her eyes hit the cold air and stung. She shifted slightly, turning to face Chixie, meeting her even, deep brown gaze.
Whatever happens, I wanted you to know. I never stopped caring about you.
This time, she could see the soft, glistening shimmer of tears in Chixie's eyes. I know. Polypa, Chixie dropped her gaze, sighed, and then leaned in and kissed her on the mouth now, without another word. And for one small moment, everything was fine. And there's the gay in the gay fanfiction hour. Pack it up, guys. We got the gay.
Tizia stepped out onto the roof, somehow knowing exactly what would be there to greet her. The roof was dominated by a large helipad in the center, elevated above the rest of the roof and supported by a series of steel struts with a staircase leading up. From where the elevator opened out onto the roof, she could see the figures of Terezi and Vriska standing next to each other on the platform, highlighted against the black sky by harsh lights of the helipad. Vriska was wearing her softly glowing god-tier outfit and had her wings unfurled behind her. It was still unbelievable that she'd found some path to Earth that had allowed her to cheat the system and retain her powers. Unbelievable, but completely on brand. A step behind her, Daria reached out and put a hand on her shoulder.
Do you have a plan?
She shook her head.
Well, fuck,
Daria whispered.
Guess I'm just wishing you good luck then.
One by one they ascended the staircase. Each step revealed more of the back of the helipad, until finally Tizius could see Terezi and Vriska weren't alone. Near the back, Connell stood with 2 IRB agents, all of them holding assault rifles. Rifles that were pointed at 4 people standing a few steps in front. Kanaya, Skyla, Chixie, and Polypa. Tizius wasn't surprised. It all made complete sense that this would wrap them all back together here on the rooftop of the very building where Terezi, Tizius, and Kanaya had worked out the details of their original plan all those years ago. Vriska didn't look happy to see her again. The cerulean stood with her hands clasped firmly behind her back, glaring daggers as Tizius approached Terezi. If she had anything to say, she was deliberately keeping her mouth shut. Terezi, on the other hand, looked almost giddy that Tizius had returned. She sniffed the air, an old habit from before going god-tier, and smiled.
I'm glad you came back. I was worried you might not want to. Or maybe you wouldn't put the pieces together.
She nodded towards Branya.
I'm not mad at you for talking to them, Branya. Knew that it would happen eventually.
Tizius narrowed her eyes and stopped walking in front of Terezi.
This whole plan of yours is absurd. What makes you think you can control Sagrub? It's not some precise weapon, it's a universal reset. You can't end the world just a little bit.
Oh, but I can.
Terezi took a step back and reached out to put her arms around Vriska's shoulders, still smiling.
I've got my little secret weapon here. My game-breaking Moirail.
Vriska cracked a smile at that, and Tizius could see a little cobalt flush on her cheeks. It would almost be endearing if the context weren't so abjectly terrifying.
Mom, can we talk for a minute?
Karkat asked as he sat down next to Tizius on the... Oh, wait. This is still you.
Karkat asked as he sat down next to Tizius on the victory platform, scooching up next to her and crossing his legs. She nodded to her son, smiling softly at him.
Sure, we've got a little while till Kanaya's done messing with the portal.
It had been a stroke of genius to realize that they could manipulate the passage of time in the world they'd created without needing to actually cross the door all at once. Between Kanaya and Terezi, they could get a vague sense of what was happening in the world. The way that people had evolved that were similar to themselves. The way they'd built civilizations that had risen and fallen and grown. None of them were exactly sure what would happen when they crossed the threshold, but they all suspected that it might result in the loss of their god-tier powers. The end of the game and all that.
I miss Gamzee. It's only been like a half hour, but...
Karkat shrugged and turned away.
But
it would be hundreds of sweeps on the other side of the portal. They talked it over, decided who should take the matriarch to the new world, and start to lay the foundations of an Alternian society that could coexist with the new race of people that had populated the planet. Kanaya had been ready to volunteer. Honestly, resigned seemed to be the best description of how she felt. And then Gamzee had stepped in and volunteered. It seemed like
he wanted a fresh start somewhere new.
Karkat continued.
We talked about it before, during the game, actually. Once it became clear what was happening with Kanaya and the matriarch and everything. He saw how much pain she was in. Said that she wasn't in the right place to start a new world and all.
He sighed and looked over towards where Kanaya was standing.
It hurt her to see what happened to Vriska, even after everything. I think she was still a little flushed for her. It was such a mess.
Tizius nodded. He was right. Vriska being killed along with Aridin, the realization of Terezi's plan, and then Tabros and Gamzee going god tier. Equius's strange refusal to use his quest bed and comments about redemption. His decision to follow Gamzee and Tavros into the portal, despite knowing full well that he might never see the rest of them again. Karkat leaned back and closed his eyes, a small smile on his face.
At least Neppa didn't go with them.
His face flushed red, and Tizius leaned over to elbow her son playfully in the ribs.
Stop it, Mom. It's not like that.
Uh-huh.
She smiled and winked at him.
Okay, fine. Maybe a little. Leave me alone.
His face was underlaid in bright red, warming the tone of his gray skin.
This is what I wanted to talk about.
Oh?
She'd been pretty sure he just wanted to open up about the Gamzee leaving. Something that she already knew was beginning to affect him deeply. It was hard to parse the difference in time, to understand when they showed up it might be 200 or 300 sweeps later, and who knew whether Gamzee would even still be alive.
No, it's something with Theferi. Her and Solix and Aradia.
That got Tizius's attention. She hadn't had much of a chance to talk to Theferi during the game.
What about them?
I think they want to make a new empire on that planet. I think that Theferi already talked to Equius about laying the groundwork for it. Starting all these legends and stuff. Making her out like she's a goddess.
That didn't sit right with Tizius. It crawled up into her stomach and settled into a bitter lump that chewed away at her guts. They'd been working so hard to break away from the Alternian Empire.
She wants it to be equitable and kind. I guess she was talking to Nep about it. Nep told me. It sounds good, honestly, but...
But an empire built on kindness is still an empire.
Tizius said quietly, repeating something she and Karkat had read from one of the Signless's early sermons. This wasn't the first time someone had proposed the idea of the Empire, but better.
Yeah, that.
Tizius stepped forward again, tenting her fingers as the smile vanished from her face.
Tysius, you know as well as I do that what Feferi started here isn't right. An empire built on kindness is still an empire.
Tysius felt her stomach drop out from under her.
Don't you...
What? Say the same exact thing that you and Carcat already knew? You think I don't know how much it hurt you to pretend everything was fine while you worked for me? You think I couldn't see the way it ate at you? Or Carcat and his position in Feferi's cabinet? The way he has to acquiesce to her when what he really wants to do is tear everything down?
What's the big plan, then? You blow everything up?
No!
Terezi exclaimed, her face the very picture of disbelief.
Why would I want to do that if I didn't have to? There's billions of people living here, but they deserve to live, not be coddled by the Earth Empire. So I use the reality-bending powers of Sagrub to make things better, to remove Feferi peacefully and make all of them realize that there's a better way. And because of my Moirail here...
Vriska's cheeks flushed again and a sly grin played across her face.
I can control the outcome, keep the meteors from destroying this planet, and control everything.
Tysius still couldn't believe that she was hearing this. Terezi had never struck her as delusional, but this plan...
What makes you think any of this will work? We all went through this already. You know that once you start that timer, you can't stop it again.
Except Vriska found out how to cheat the system. None of us were supposed to be able to keep our powers. The rules were right there. We stepped through the gate and we were rewarded with immortality, but that doesn't mean we can't die.
There was a funeral they'd never been able to attend, 100 years past. Carcat had learned about what had happened to his Moirail in a history book. The story about the Purple Blood who helped establish the Alternian people on Earth, only to die in a tragic accident hundreds of years later. At first, his followers had thought he might rise again. The legends of Sagrub had been retold to the point of mythology by then, but it was destined never to be.
But her?
Terezi gestured to Vriska.
She's different. She kept her powers and woke up here having traversed the doors of reality. She's got the same abilities as she had during our session. But now that fucking clock is gone. There's no more just, no more heroic.
Vriska leaned forward and interrupted.
Basically, I can't die, bitch. I know how to break this fucking game. Really, you should be happy.
Exactly.
Terezi said.
And I'm giving you and your friends a chance to help me. You talked so much about revolution, Tysius, about the way the Signless would have wanted things. Why not actually help make it a reality?
I know that you and Mama Stells are... I know you both want what's best. I'm just worried about what that means to some of the others.
Carcat sighed heavily and leaned over towards Tysius.
I don't know. I'm confused. I'm scared. I wasn't ready for this. Is this how he felt back then? The sufferer?
He was only a couple sweeps older than you when he died.
Tysius said softly.
I'm glad you kept my headcanon of the Signless dying before turning 18.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he was just as scared and confused as you are. Maybe more so. After all, he didn't get to see the Alternian Empire actually crumble around him.
Carcat smiled at that, but it was a smile tinged with bitterness.
I wish it didn't have to end the way it did. All those people.
She put an arm around her son's shoulder and pulled him in close. In that moment, he seemed so much older than his 6 sweeps implied.
I know, Carcat. I know.
They sat like that for a moment longer, the two of them just leaning on each other. It reminded Tysius of when Carcat used to be a wriggler. The way that he would sit between her and Stelsa and listen to them tell stories. He would get so excited to hear about the history of the revolution, or to hear the silly stories that Tagora would interject with from time to time. The stories that blended reality and fiction into an amusing, if completely unreliable, mess. Every one of those moments had always had the same pall dropped over them, the inevitable outcome of what they were preparing for, the end of the world.
Zizi?
Tysius's voice cut into Stelsa's voice cut into Tysius's thoughts, and she looked up to see her mate Sprit standing there, smiling.
Zizi, wonderful news! They finished with the portal. They're ready for us.
That's...
Tysius wasn't sure how to finish the thought. She pushed herself up and walked over to Stelsa, focusing on her mate Sprit's grinning face. She didn't need to say anything else. She stepped in and wrapped Stelsa in a warm embrace, closing her eyes and letting her mate Sprit's soft, gentle lull for that one brief moment. But it was time for them to go. Kanaya was waiting by the portal, looking impatient.
Tizius and the others walked forward, forming a semicircle around the portal that had opened up to the victory platform.
Once we go through, this portal closes, Kanaya said, addressing the whole group. Based on some of the information we have collected, I suspect we will make certain trades as far as our lifespans and abilities. She shrugged and smiled at them. In any case, it is better than languishing in this void forever.
One by one, they began to step through the portal. The survivors of their session, the ones who'd been lucky enough to make it through everything that Alternia had leveled at them, to survive Ascension, to survive the Revolution, to survive Scrub. One by one, Stelsa gave Tizius a kiss and told her that she'd see her on the other side. Karkat hugged her, told her he loved her in Mama Stells, and stepped through. Tagora gave her an almost inappropriately suggestive wink before he walked into the portal. Daria hugged her, kissed her cheek, and told her it would only be a minute. Finally, Palipa stood in front of her and smiled.
Hey, Tiz, we did all right, didn't we?
The olive blood sounded hopeful.
Yeah, I guess we did.
Let's not fuck it up,
Palipa responded. Then she too turned and walked through the portal. It was only Tizius and Kanaya. Kanaya had agreed to go last, in case she needed to do anything else to manipulate the portal.
Kanaya?
Yes, Kanaya replied.
Thanks. Thanks for everything. Thanks for helping Karkat all these sweeps. I don't know what we would have done without you.
Well, I am indispensable, Kanaya responded with a smile. I have come to think of you as almost a mother, an aunt, if you will.
Yeah.
Tizius smiled back at her and turned, and stepped through the portal. In that space between the spaces, she had no physical form. It was the only thing that stopped her from doubling over with shock as the images rushed at her. The same as the vision when she god-tiered, the same as all her other visions, but more so, amplified and condensed and thrown at her in a way that couldn't be ignored. Fire and destruction raining down over an unfamiliar city, the portals opening up above the world. Terezi standing there, smiling next to a flash of gold, a figure that lost itself in the shadows of perception and refused to resolve itself. A shouted confession. A spreading blush of brilliant forever blue, stretching out and changing reality itself. And a phrase that repeated itself over and over in her mind, twisted and turned and wove itself into every fiber of her being. The key to everything. She appeared in a field in the outskirts of a city, in the middle of a vast plain of dry grass in the heat of the sun. A sun that warmed her but didn't burn. Nearby, she could see the others gathered, talking quietly. She needed to talk to Terezi. But Tizius didn't move right away. She needed to talk to Kanaya. Behind her, the air seemed to ripple, and reality itself felt like it was momentarily being peeled away. Kanaya was standing there in the grass nearby, blinking and looking around.
This is...
Kanaya looked up at the sky.
It's blue?
The sound of her laughter was musical. Kanaya walked up to Tizius and smiled broadly at her.
Aunt Tiz, it's blue.
Another laugh.
Kanaya, I need to tell you something. And I need you to listen very carefully. And promise you won't forget.
Terezi reached into her suit jacket and pulled out an unlabeled disc case. A case that Tizius knew contained the very same program that had once ended their world.
I'm asking you once more to help me. You, and all of the rest. Bring down this empire. Show Feferi how the people can come together as one. Help us.
I'm not gonna change your mind, am I?
Tizius asked. In front of her, Terezi laughed and shook her head.
No, this is the last time I'll ask, and then, I'm sorry. You were always good to me, and I hate to do this. But I can't let you continue to prop up this system, even if you don't mean to.
There was a chance. If she could reach the disc, or maybe if she could move quickly enough. The shape of her service pistol was pressing up against the side of her back, right inside her belt. If she moved quickly enough, maybe she could draw before Vriska had a chance to react. Maybe she could outdraw Terezi before she reached for her own pistol. Maybe she could act ahead of the 3 people with assault rifles standing by her friends. Maybe. Probably not.
Vriska!
Kanaya's voice carried across the helipad, cutting into the still, cold darkness.
I have something to tell you.
And something tripped inside of Tizius. An old memory. What is it? Kanaya said quietly, her smile fading as she saw Tizius' expression.
It's important she remember it exactly. I need you to remember what I'm about to say. I don't care if it doesn't make sense. Just fucking remember it, okay?
Silently, Kanaya nodded. Tizius took a deep breath and repeated from memory.
Someday, when all hope is lost.
Vriska's eyes flitted over and she grit her teeth before responding, to not even bothering to turn her head.
What is it, Miriam? You remember I existed after all of this? You think I'd forget how you treated me? How you got so mad at me because of what? Because of Tavros?
She laughed.
And then how you and Terezi worked to fucking kill me over something I hadn't even done yet? When you're standing on the edge of the world.
Kanaya's voice came back loud and clear over this distance between them. You forgave her, didn't you? That got Vriska's attention. She turned her head slightly.
Oh, you mean Rezi? You're gonna compare yourself to my Moirail now, Miriam? Afraid that ship sailed a long time ago. Remind her how you used to feel.
Tizius finished reciting the last thing she'd heard when the vision hit her. A vision that had already begun to take on the faint, fading quality of a dream. She was cut off from her aspect, cut off from the abilities that Scrub had granted her. What does that mean? Kanaya asked, her face lined with confusion. What am I supposed to do with it? Tizius stepped forward and leaned to put her head close to Kanaya's, and she spoke in a low, hissing whisper.
Remember it.
I loved you, Kanaya shouted. You don't remember how I used to feel about you?
So fucking what?
Vriska narrowed her eyes and turned her head a little more.
Get in line. Everybody loved me.
You don't get it, you dense piece of... I wanted to be your mate, Spread. I loved you so much. I still love you after everything. It wasn't an act. That was the thing that struck Tizius more than the actual words. Kanaya wasn't playing some part or making something up. She had never stopped caring about Vriska, even after everything. Vriska's eyes widened and she turned fully around to face Kanaya.
You... what?
All at once, Tizius saw it. Saw why Tizius had been why Vriska had been standing with her hands behind her back. Her right hand, wrapped in bandages, stained a dull blue, and much smaller than it should be, as if it were missing fingers. The last two pieces of the puzzle finally fit into place. Here, standing at the edge of the end of the world, everything finally made sense. She reached back and grabbed the pistol from her back, pulling it clear of the holster in one motion. She had barely passed her last qualification, and hitting Vriska's hand had been a stroke of luck. But there was no way she could miss at this range. She aimed the pistol at Vriska's heart and pulled the trigger.
The second that Kanaya started shouting, Philippa started paying attention. Whatever Kanaya was saying wasn't important. That much was obvious. What was important was that this was a distraction. Get in line! Everybody loved me.
How much more conceited can she get?
Philippa had never known Vriska particularly well before her untimely demise. And maybe at that time she'd just been an immature 6-week-old, but it had been 10 years since then. And she let her experiences sink deep and take root.
You don't get it, you dense piece of... I wanted to be your mate, Spread. I love you so much. I still love you, even after everything.
Oh, I want to see the let's not fuck it up dramatic eye. It was shocking how real it felt when Kanaya said it, and Philippa didn't think that she was acting. That hurt. Stabbed at a place inside of Philippa's heart that she tried to keep hidden, a place where she really only let one person in before. She glanced over at Chixie, who was shaking and wide-eyed. If they got out of this alive, she wasn't going to let what they had said slip away again. Across the helipad, Vriska turned around. You... what? All at once, Philippa saw it. The way Tizius was crouched down slightly, tensing for an action she was committed to, but not one that her muscles had developed a memory for. The reason for Kanaya's sudden outburst. Because at the end of the day, nothing about this was random. It felt like it had somehow been planned. And Philippa couldn't explain why, but this was her chance. The world slowed down. She saw Tizius reach back, sweeping aside her loose shirt and grabbing the pistol from the holster that was tucked up against her waist. Tizius's movements were jerky, the way someone who was determined but not practiced moves. They'd probably made her qualify with the pistol, at least, but Philippa doubted she'd even fired the thing inside of a year, much less actually had to draw under pressure. It didn't matter. Vriska was distracted, and no one expected her to do this in the first place, but Pelipa knew exactly what was going to happen next, and she coiled her own muscles down like a spring, ready for what happened next. There was no way Tisius could miss at that range. She aimed the pistol at Vriska's heart and pulled the trigger. Outside the window, the snow was falling. Something that she'd never seen before coming to Earth. Inside, she was sitting on the bed, wrapped up in a blanket, with her mate Sprit curled up next to her, watching the snow. She couldn't say that life on Earth was perfect. There was still a lot to work on. A lot of issues that had only been compounded by Feferi and the Earth Empire. Both of them were keenly aware of the problems, given Chixie's heavy involvement in the protest movement and their continued connection to the rebel underground. But for this moment, none of that mattered at all. Outside, it was snowing. Inside, it was warm, and there wasn't anywhere Pelipa would rather be. Nearby, Chixie's cat, a too small bundle of fluff and energy, and probably poop. I'm imagining Chixie's cat being Zero now.
Oh my god.
Wended her way across the bed and bumped her head up against the side of the blanket before losing interest and curling up nearby, yawning broadly and settling in to take a nap. It seemed like a good idea. Pelipa closed her eyes, the world outside dropping away, leaving only the gentle warmth of the blanket and her mate Sprit next to her. Chixie's breathing was slow and even, and Pelipa wouldn't have been able to imagine this back on Alternia. Even after she started seeing Chixie, life had been uncertain. "You're gonna stay here, right?" Chixie muttered under her breath. She sounded like she was about to fall asleep. "Gonna stay here with me?" Pelipa nodded.
Yeah, of course. Nothing to do tomorrow. I can stay over.
"No," Chixie murmured. "Not just overnight. I mean..." She yawned and leaned up against Pelipa, sinking down under the covers and sighing happily. "I mean, you're not gonna go away? Not gonna stop caring about me?" Pelipa wrapped her arms around Chixie, drawing her in close.
Of course not.
The gunshot echoed across the helipad, and a jet of cerulean ichor sprayed out from Vriska's chest where the hollow point round impacted her heart. Pelipa was familiar with the effect, the way the bullet rapidly expanded and shredded the vital organ on its way through, leaving a cavity that blood would rapidly rush into. Vriska fell forward, and Pelipa was already moving. She couldn't beat Connell. The massive olive blood was easily 50 pounds of muscle heavier than her, but she didn't have to. The IRB agent closest to her was about her size, and he'd already lifted his rifle and aimed it at Tisius.
Wrong fucking move.
Pelipa ducked in around the rifle and came up quickly, landing a hard elbow on the side of the agent's jaw and sending him off to the side. She grabbed the rifle, twisted, and pulled the trigger. The rifle barked 3 times, and the IRB agent sprouted 2 new holes in his body. Pelipa kicked off and sent him reeling to the ground, then wheeled around and aimed the rifle at Connell's head. She pulled the trigger again, and the rifle spat out a burst that struck Connell near the base of the skull, disintegrating part of her jaw and sending her down to the floor with a hard, wet noise that carried an air of absolute finality. I forgot you killed Connell in this.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, before we started this reread, I forgot Connell was part of the skull. The last agent was too quick. She moved back from where she was standing near Jonaya and aimed her rifle directly at Chixie's head. The world was moving too slowly. Pelipa could feel her muscles tensing and relaxing as she tried to bring the rifle around, but nothing was working the way it was supposed to. The agent's finger was practically on the trigger, getting ready to turn the one person Pelipa ever really truly cared about into a puff of bronze-colored gore. "Stop!" Terezi screamed from where she was standing. The agent froze in place, her finger hovering dangerously close to the trigger. Terezi was standing there, stock still, with Tisius' pistol pressed up against the side of her head. Chixie's breathing wasn't as slow anymore. It was, in fact, slightly ragged after everything. Pelipa lay next to her naked chest, listening to the beating of her heart as it slowly returned to normal, along with her breathing, back to a state of calm from what they'd been doing together. Chixie didn't say anything. She drew in a long, deep breath and let it out with a happy sigh. It was the sound of someone who had finally found something that she could fall back into that wouldn't hurt her, wouldn't be a place of insecurity or pain in the world. Pelipa had never expected that place to be her. She'd spent so much time trying to run away from what she'd had to do while she was still in Alternia, or when she was helping the revolution. "What are you thinking about?" Chixie asked quietly, her voice soft and far away.
The time I had to kill my own Moirail. Nothing, just listening to your heart.
"It wasn't all of a lie." "That's sweet," Chixie said, her voice lilting. "You're sweet. Wasn't all of a lie, but at least part of one."
"Stand the fuck down!"
Terezi yelled at the last remaining IRB agent. Connell's body was rapidly cooling on the ground, and the IRB agent that Pelipa had first shot was lying on the ground, gasping for air. One of the bullets must have punctured a lung on its way through. The last agent had her gun pointed at Chixie, but even she looked nervous about it. Tisius began to walk Terezi forward, back towards where the others were standing. The whole time, she kept her finger on the trigger of her pistol and the pistol up against Terezi's head. Even if someone made a move, there was only one possible outcome for the IRB directors of operations.
Let's just talk this out. Wait for Vriska to get up and we can talk.
Terezi's voice had the edges of panic on it. That reminded Philippa so much of the scared six-week-old that had made the impossible decision to kill her own Moirail. The feeling twisted inside of Philippa's gut. She could empathize. She's not getting up, Tisius said, loud and clear. Maybe she kept some of her powers, but there's no coming back from it.
No, I can't lose her again. I can't. I'll prototype her if I have to. Or maybe the rules will reset when the game starts and she'll just come back.
How? Tisius asked. This is over. Can you get the disc from her, please? Kanaya stepped forward and reached inside of Terezi's jacket, pulling out the unassuming disc case. As soon as Kanaya stepped back, Terezi started to laugh.
You thought I brought it here?
Philippa could feel her insides drop, and from the look on Tisius's face, the teal blood was going through a series of similar emotions.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Next to her, Kanaya opened the case. It was empty. Terezi laughed.
It's safe. It's safe, and you can't do anything about it. And if the people keeping it safe don't hear back from me in the next 10 minutes, then they run the game anyway. Maybe I can't control the outcome without Vriska's help, but I can set everything back. I can burn this fucking empire to the ground.
Philippa's insides were about to turn themselves out. This was everything they'd feared. For a brief second, she'd allowed herself that one last piece of hope. The last chance that everything would turn out okay. And now, she could feel the sensation of everything slipping away. And for some reason, Kanaya was laughing. I know it wasn't easy for you. Trixie's voice was soft and quiet, matching the snowfall outside and the gentle warmth under the blanket. I know you had to do horrible things. I know you still think about them sometimes. Philippa didn't respond. She could feel the embarrassment burning on her face, but Trixie didn't sound upset. I know that's why you toss in your sleep, and why you sometimes get quiet out of nowhere and won't tell me why. She hugged Philippa up against her. You know I don't need you to tell me about it, right? I know it's hard. I know it's something that haunts you sometimes. Just, I want you to know that I'm here for you. You know that, right? Philippa nodded silently. It wasn't a lie. Good, because I care about you. A long pause. Because I fell in love with you. It was the first time she'd heard those words coming from anyone. This was a moment, a place in time and space that she didn't want to end. Even still, Philippa knew it would only last a moment for that brief period of time. That it would soon pass and the next moment would begin, and the next after that. There was nothing she could do about it. And maybe that was going to be okay. Is this Terezi?
This is Terezi.
Why the fuck are you laughing?
Terezi's voice had risen in pitch as she stared at Kanaya.
I planned this out, you know?
Kanaya kept laughing, and she turned to the side and tossed the case over the edge of the helipad before turning to Terezi.
I'm sorry. I've always found it amusing that you thought you were the only one that knew how to plan things more than a few seconds in advance.
The hairs on the back of Philippa's neck pricked up, and every fiber of her being was focused on what Kanaya was saying. Whose line is this?
I think this Kanaya.
I need you to do something. It's important.
Kanaya chuckled once more before her face turned serious.
I wonder, which people are keeping it safe exactly?
She leaned forward and looked at Terezi, and there wasn't a trace of humor in her expression.
Is it the safe house in Brooklyn that you keep under constant guard? Is it, perhaps, that airfield out on Narragansett Point that you tried to have us killed at? Or maybe it's further afield. The cabin in the woods of the Northeast Territory that you managed to somehow keep off the books for years.
All the color was draining out of Terezi's face now.
Or the compound down south that you disguised as a training camp, but somehow only certain select people ever get assigned there. Is that maybe where you mean?
Kanaya sighed heavily and put a hand to her cheek.
I must say it was quite a project, keeping track of you all these years. It was hard to know who I could trust. It was hard to keep it off your radar. Fortunately,
she leaned in even closer and smiled, the smile of someone who knew this was coming for a while now.
I insisted on maintaining my autonomy. Mine and the one person I knew I could trust with this.
Tagora. Oh wait, that's a Philippa.
Tagora.
It doesn't matter.
Terezi hissed at her, the smile back on her face.
I already gave them their orders. It doesn't matter if you know something if it's already happening.
Then it's a good thing that Tagora began passing anonymous information to the Empress a week ago, isn't it?
The smile vanished from Terezi's face.
A good thing that he compiled all of the information in a way that highlighted just how deeply you dug yourself into the Empire. How you'd used the existential threat of Sagrub to justify everything you did. It was clever.
Kanaya glared at her and took a single step forward.
But I'm clever too, Terezi. I kept a close eye on these sites you thought were secret, and when I saw a movement starting, I had Tagora suggest that perhaps the Emperor should station tactical teams nearby. Not IRB teams, of course, but her most loyal, trusted soldiers.
Fuck you!
Terezi snapped back.
It doesn't matter! It doesn't matter!
She was completely unconvinced. Philippa could see it in her eyes. Kanaya shrugged.
You think you're the only one who knows how to play the Empire against itself. Frefri might be misguided, but she does mean well. The thought of what you were trying to do? I had Tagora pass the last of the information along to her an hour ago. The last piece she needed to feel comfortable authorizing a simultaneous strike against every single one of your little secrets. By now, I'm sure your scrub disk is being ground into small pieces. For all of her failings, she genuinely loves this world. The idea of destroying it?
Kanaya shrugged and didn't say anything else. There wasn't anything else to say. Terezi blanched, looked down at the ground, and her entire body deflated. Whatever was left in her was completely gone, and when she spoke, her voice was far away and small, the voice of the 6-week-old that had been forced to kill her own Moirail.
Stand down.
The agent standing next to Chixie took her finger off the trigger, slung her rifle on her shoulder, and took a step back. Skyla stepped in and grabbed the rifle, pulling it roughly away and shoving the agent back another step. In the same instant, Tizia stepped back and put her pistol back in its holster, fumbling with her shirt and shaking as she returned the weapon to its proper place. Without even thinking it, Philippa turned and grabbed Chixie, pulling her into a tight hug and kissing her on the cheek. The sense of relief that flooded over her was too much, enough to sweep her legs out from under if she wasn't leaning on Chixie. Everything was catching up to her all at once. The last day of hell and violence and terror, the last 8 years of uncertainty and doubt and fear, the last 2 decades of having to fight constantly for what she knew was the right thing, even when everyone else seemed committed to ignoring it. What happens now? Terezi muttered, half to herself. She'd become so small, shrunken back into herself. Doesn't matter, Tisius responded. You won't be a part of it. Oh, last chapter.
Yeah, it's the last one. This is 6 months later.
Hey, we're outside. Has the fire been stoked? No, but the embers still burn. Hell yeah. Give me a sec.
I don't know. Are you sure this is a good idea?
I think you're...
Oh yeah, wait, that's right. Karkat looked over at Tisius, then glanced quickly at Stelsa, then back again.
What if they don't want me there?
Tisius shook her head and put her hand on her son's shoulder. He'd come so far in the years since she and Stelsa had raised him from a grub, tucking him into his soundproof container to sleep. If anything, this had been long overdue.
Don't worry about it.
Tisius said quietly.
It's all people you know anyway. Aunt Daria and Philippa and all the rest.
Okay, I guess.
He smiled nervously. The 3 of them were standing in an unassuming back door in a residential part of the New Alternian district, waiting to be let in. The weather had finally started to cool down, at least. The summer had been a hot one. The fact that it included the high-profile trial of Terezi Pyrope hadn't made the tensions run at anything other than a boiling point. The former director of the now-defunct Imperial Regulatory Bureau was expected to be in court for at least another 6 months, if not a year. Meanwhile, their work continued in the background. The political climate was tense, and tense tended to lead to explosive. A soft click sounded from the door, and it opened just a crack, revealing Daria's face in the doorframe. As soon as she recognized Tisius, she opened the door and let the 3 of them in, stopping to hug Tisius as she walked through.
Missed you?
She said quickly.
The others are in the back.
Stelsa and Karkat had already gone on ahead, but Tisius took a second look around the room before she went back. It was nicer than the place they'd been in before, more comfortable, with space to sit and work. In some ways it reminded Tisius of their old apartment back on the ICO, a place where revolution was born. But the revolution they were making here was a different kind than what they'd done on the Alternian Empire, because the Earth Empire was a different beast entirely, and Fefri was different from the Condess.
You just gonna stand there and look silly?
Daria asked. Tizius blinked, nodded, and followed her down a long hallway and into the back room. The room was large and packed with various pieces of equipment, computer hardware that Malik supervised, and a long table with several chairs set around it. Filing cabinets lined the walls, tucked in along with server hardware. Someone, most likely Palipa, had taped one of Chixie's concert posters up on the wall. Sitting around a small, round table were Palipa, Stelsa, and Karkat. Malik was nearby, typing something onto a laptop. "About time," Palipa said. "Was about to start without you." Tizius sat down in the empty spot next to Stelsa, while Daria took the chair across from her. Palipa, as down to business as always, pulled up out a notepad and pen and flipped the notebook open to a blank page. "You hear from Gorgor yet?" she asked, starting to make notes on the pad. "I've been kinda out of that part of things."
He's still working with Kanaya. They're part of the Empire's case against Trilogy, so that's gonna be dragging out a bit longer.
Next to Stelsa, Tizius could see Karkat flinch at the mention of Terezi's name. It had hit him especially hard what had happened. He'd actually refused to believe any of it up until he went to visit her in the high-security lockup where she was being held. "Okay, that's good. Malik's got a good inside source with the courts, passing us information about the proceedings that don't make it into the news. Sounds like Fefri is trying to make an example of her." Tizius nodded, still watching Karkat's expression.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like to me. What about your mate, Sprit? She's still planning on leading the protest this Friday?
Palipa smiled and nodded quickly. "Yeah, Chicks is still down for that. Concert on Saturday that'll play off of it." But the smile vanished. "We're worried, though. Order loyalists are threatening to crash any future protest, and, well, you know how the Empire feels about all of this."
Yeah.
Tizius frowned. The Empire would prefer to very much stay out of everything, at least until they were done trying and convicting Terezi. From their sources inside, mainly Kanaya and Tagora, Tizius knew that Fefri was hoping that would lend legitimacy to her empire. After all, if the Earth Empire could weather something this massive, then it could survive basically any test. Karkat was watching all of this with rapt attention, and Tizius was reminded distinctly of the small wriggler, wide-eyed at the stories of his ancestor and everything that he'd fought for. "Excuse me?" Karkat interrupted, looking at Palipa. "You're trying to inspire a groundswell movement against the Empire? To pressure Fefri into stepping down? With the pressure of the trial and the public support turning against her, this is a chance to convince her without resorting to bloodshed." Palipa nodded, smiling. "Yeah, you're just as smart as your mom made you out to be, huh?" Karkat flushed and smiled down at his lap. "Well, that's the idea, anyway. We still got the Order of the Mutineer to contend with. Being labeled a hate group by the Empire doesn't seem to have slowed them down much." She was worried. Tizius could see it in her eyes.
What's wrong?
"I'm worried about Chicks. It's not like we can run armed security in the city. Empire would crack down on us in a heartbeat if we did that. But the Order?" She didn't need to finish. The Order wasn't under any such restrictions. They were already enemies of the Empire. What difference did it make if they brought some illegal weapons to a protest? Tizius.
Not much we can do. I don't love it, but there's already Imperial troops deploying in New Amsterdam because of the trial. We run afoul of them, it's gonna fuck everything else up.
Tizius shrugged, resigned to something she couldn't control. It wasn't pleasant, but it was the way things were. Palipa sighed and closed her notebook, tucking the pen back into the ring binding. "Yeah, I know. Gotta be careful, gotta play our cards just right and bide our time. Welcome to the Quiet Revolution, right?"
Welcome to the Quiet Revolution,
Tizius said with a small smile.
Is that it?
"For now. We'll meet tomorrow after I talk to Chicks again tonight. We hear from Tagora in the morning. Oh, also, Tiz, I need to speak to you, privately." Stelsa shot her a quick glance, a worried glance, but Tizius waved it off and nodded.
Sure, let's talk out front.
Standing out front, Tizius couldn't help but think of a parking structure years back, of the argument that split the alliance she once had with Palipa for so long. Palipa was standing here now, hands in her pockets, looking down at the ground. She looked like a different person than she had back then, tempered and considerate in a way she hadn't been before. She'd been happier lately, too. In spite of how much work they had to do, she seemed to be more at peace with herself. Tizzy supposed that reconnecting with her mate spread had something to do with that, although that was technically speculation on her part. So, Polypa said quietly, shuffling her feet and screwing up her mouth. I guess we never really got a chance to talk about what happened. Just you and me, I mean.
No, I guess not. Look, Polypa,
I'm sorry, Tiz. The words hung in the middle of the air, spoken but not fully processed.
You're sorry? Why?
She shrugged. I don't know. I've been talking to chicks lately about a lot of stuff. What happened back then, it really hurt me. We fought together. We did some stuff we never wanted to. She was starting to cry, the glisten of tears visible in the corner of her eyes. And after everything, it just felt like you were going right back to filling your role in the system. New boss, same as the old boss and all that.
Polypa,
So I was pissed at you. I hated you because you were willing to work with the Empress, and I didn't know what else to do. Everything felt so impossible. I wish I'd known about that plan that Kanai and Tagore had come up with.
I mean, so do I.
Tizius interrupted.
They never told me anything. I'm not sure if it would have worked out if I knew too much.
Polypa shrugged again. No idea, but, well, shit. I almost let my feelings poison every good thing that ever happened to me after, you know? Chixie. Oh, that's your thought.
Chixie. She means Chixie.
After she was forced to kill Tagiri, she wasn't doing well. Chixie was one of the few people who seemed to get Polypa.
It's not your fault.
Tizius said quietly.
You did what you thought was right. I did what I thought was right. Except, in my case...
It was hard to ignore how close they'd come to missing what Terezi was up to. If it weren't for Kanaya's planning behind the scenes, it wouldn't have mattered. I didn't want things to go the way they did. Chixie tried to warn me back then. Tried to tell me I was going down a hole. But I didn't want to listen because I hated what you'd become so fucking much. Polypa leaned back against the wall of the building and looked up the clear, blue September sky.
Well, that's one thing we had in common.
Tizius walked over and leaned up next to her, looking up as well. There wasn't a cloud to be found. Wasn't anything that would mar the pristine beauty above them. A sky that covered the profound and the decrepit alike, the sinners and saints of this new world. No guarantees now. No visions, no lingering hints, no secret plans behind the scenes. Polypa closed her eyes and Tizius saw her mouth curl up into a smile. Just you and me and the others. Just like old times, right?
Yeah.
Tizius kept staring at the sky, up at the pale blue expanse at the edge of the world. She was reminded of a small scrap of blanket, a light blue tatter of cloth that Karkat had liked to chew on as a grub. A reminder that no matter how bad things got, or how confusing, there was always some hope.
Just like old times.
And
we did the antecedent! It took us over a year!
And now the next one is twice as long as the antecedent!
Let's see how the chat's been doing.
Yeah. Happy? Question mark ending. Yeah. I mean... It's a positive ending.
I mean, it's not, the series isn't done yet. There's one more book.
Yeah, exactly.
Order of the Mutineer is still so strange.
Yeah, they're basically like the woobified version of Mind Fang is what they're.
Yeah.
That's the Mutineer in this case.
Yeah. Okay, but who hasn't wanted to idolize a circuit at one point or another?
Yeah, I feel like that's a problem, generally speaking. I'm going to switch it over here. There we go. So I can close this window.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's the full
The antecedent.
antecedent. If you haven't seen the other parts of it, the other 5 parts of our Fic Read series are on the channel. You just gotta, dig back a year. Not like I've done that many streams in the last year, though.
Yeah. Well, the first 2 parts of the Progeny?
First 2 parts are the Progeny. Final part of the Progeny is also part of the antecedent
That's
as well,
right.
and then it took us 4 parts.
Yeah.
That makes sense. 2 parts for the Progeny, 4 parts for the antecedent.
So it's gonna take us
parts
eight, the Vriska number.
Yeah, even though Vriska's gone.
Vriska's like super dead now.
Yeah. She had to die sometime. Not everything can be all Vriska all the time.
Yeah. So one of the things I think is fun about writing AUs is like there's no real like thing you have to adhere to as far as like what characters do and like whether or not they survive and
Vriska is kill.
Yeah.
Vriska is definitely kill.
Yeah, Vriska is kill, and Vriska doesn't come back in the third one.
Nope, no more Vriska.
There are surprises in the third one.
Oh, there's some surprises,
but not Vriska related ones. There's
more...
the
lineage gets fucked up in many ways.
Yeah, there's more like backstory stuff too. Like I think there's more scenes from the session in the lineage, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
That explains some more of the like what happened and everyone's motivations and shit like that.
And if you think Terezi went crazy at the end of this, Terezi goes real fucking crazy in this one.
It's like Terezi doesn't get better. She doesn't do better in the next one. But yeah, all the areas are like real play. Like this, it's based on like more or less the geography of like the New York metropolitan area and like Long Island, because like Narragansett that's a place out in Long Island.
Does she get worse? Yes.
Yeah,
she
gets so much worse. There's a bunch
the
of...
lineage is the fic where there's that scene where with NYU and Dave wanting to throw a bird off of the...
Yes. There's that flash to an alternate possible like universe.
Yeah.
And it's the Dave and the NYU library.
Dave wants to throw a pigeon through the anti-suicide
bars. No, the
at
anti-suicide bars didn't exist when I went to NYU.
Oh.
So I wrote it based on the assumption they weren't there.
Oh right, because you hadn't moved to the city yet.
I'd never seen the new library. Yeah, I didn't know they'd added those. So. But yeah, that's the one with Dave and the pigeon.
Yeah. So for all you Dave fans, there's a single chapter with Dave in the next one.
Yeah, like none of the kids are in the story proper because of how the thing worked with the game and everything, and like the scrub session actually being successful, but also like there is a scene that falls Dave.
Dave and a pigeon.
Yeah.
Dave would.
You gotta wait to see how that goes, or read the story. You could just read it now.
Instead of having to wait however long it takes for us to get through it.
Yeah, it's a long one. It's like 122,000 words.
Yeah, because you're crazy.
I'm not crazy. I just write a lot.
You're crazy.
You're the best, and I love you.
You're the best, and I love you.
I had fun reading this.
Yeah, we should find more times to do more of these streams.
Yeah.
Because I miss streaming. I haven't done it
fun.
enough lately.
Yeah, it's fun to do. I think it's time to go.
Dave is, as always, no matter what, categorically linked to birds. You're both crazy. I mean, we are both a little crazy.
Yeah.
I think Jonaya's a little more crazy than I am. Her output is crazier than mine.
Yeah.
I can only squeeze out a song every couple weeks, and you guys don't see them because they're demos for another musical I'm working on.
Yeah, I mean, you're still doing stuff. It's just not Homestuck related all the time. Of course, not everything I do is Homestuck related. I do have like a job. I have an actual job.
Yeah, you have a whole ass full-time job.
I write code for my job, which no one ever sees because it's fucking insurance software.
Yeah. Well, I teach children about music for my job, and
you teach the children about the piano and the singing
and the music theory.
Yes.
And one time I tried to explain a singing technique by using Homestuck voices.
That's funny.
I mean, I was trying to explain like how to put your voice in different parts of your mouth specifically so I could get a student into her mix.
And, like, the voice I use for Joey is kind of the right place where you want to put your mix.
This is not related to that, but I think it's funny. So I have this version of the, like, I don't know if anyone in here listening to this is familiar with the Watchmen comic, and there's the scene where the main villain is, like, basically doing this whole monologue where he's like, you know, do you think I'm an idiot? I did this 35 minutes ago, and I made a meme version of it with Kanaya,
yeah.
and I think it's funny that I basically have Kanaya doing that speech.
Yes.
In the end, there, it's like, no, we've been doing this for like a week. We're not dumb.
Kanaya saves the day.
And
Your
Tagora. Kanaya and Tagora.
Your two voices.
The two characters I voiced.
Two characters you were inextricably linked to.
Yeah, space players. I guess that's the common element.
I forget what class you gave Tagora.
Crap. Shit, I don't remember. Do I explain it? I must at some point.
I don't remember. Like, obviously, Kanaya is just her own regular god tier, but Tagora... Thief, maybe? Was he the thief
Yeah,
of
he
space?
was a thief of space.
Okay, that feels very fitting for Tagora.
Yeah, like a bunch of people god tiered in their session.
Yeah.
Because their session was big. Like, it was way bigger than the troll session. Because
Well, yeah,
it had
it was
all
the
the 12 plus a bunch of other people.
Plus Tizia Stelsa, Malik Daria, Palipa, Chixie, Skyla, Branya,
Connell,
Lunera.
Yeah. Do you say Therese? Wait, no, she's the one that's 12. secret unrevealed troll that is gonna be mentioned in the next one.
Space player saving the day is always fun. Remembers Jaden Cascade, the iconic.
Yeah.
I used to know how to play that on piano.
That's cool.
Yeah. I related to Homestuck and piano lessons. I still to warm up. I always play Troll Cops. Troll Cops is my warm up song. So.
I got through that Saber of the Waking World at Beat Saber.
Right.
I finally got that one. That one was doable. The fucking Unite Synchronize is like, it's kind of doable for the first bit. Like, I was able to get through like halfway through the song, and then it just becomes like impossibly difficult. And the fucking Blind Justice Investigation is also really hard. I got kind of far in that one, but it's just like, I don't know, it gets to the point where it's impossible. Not literally impossible, but like, I couldn't do it. I would have to put months of practice into doing those well.
Yeah, and how much time do you really have to dedicate to Beat Saber?
Not right now, none. But also, my controller's messed up, so I can't even play it.
Terezi, she crazy, but her music great. Yeah.
No, Terezi is. I love Terezi. I read a whole detective stories that have Terezi and Jane as the main characters.
Yeah.
I rewrite
which I haven't
those.
actually read those.
They're alright. I wrote them very quickly. Like, one of them I wrote in, like, I finished it in, like, a week. So I could get it done for 413. Like, I wrote, like, 50,000 words in a week. And by a week, I mean, like, 5 days.
Because you're fucking crazy.
I just kept doing writing sprints. And it's, like, it's pretty rough. It's definitely one of the rougher fics I've got. But I like it. It's still good. It's another one that's got a whole, like, complicated, like, time loop plot thing going on.
That's most of the Homestuck characters, honestly. Yeah. I mean, if there's anything that's true about the Homestuck soundtrack, is it goes so fucking hard.
It is also, like, 100-something songs.
More?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's more.
There's a lot of songs.
I mean, fuck, each volume is like 40 songs.
Yeah, that's true, and there's 6 volumes. There's like 300 songs.
There's 10 volumes.
Wait, why do I think there were 6?
No, actually, technically there's 11, but
okay.
That's the Beyond Canon soundtrack.
They don't all have 40, though. They have a lot, but the later ones have more.
Yeah.
Like, volumes... Oh, no, I'm thinking of the ones associated with Act 6. That's... Because there isn't one. There's only one song, so there were 2 songs associated with Act 7. However many.
It's
the Overture.
4.
Well, one of them is like a big long song, right? The track?
Wait, oh yeah, no. It's Symphony Impossible to Play, which is 4 tracks, but it's only the first track. That's why I was...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, I love Symphony Impossible to Play.
That's a good song. That was good stuff.
I only have the regular version, the original version downloaded. Mm-hmm. So, well, I don't anymore. It's on one of my old computers.
I've got them downloaded somewhere.
I had a bunch of the volumes, and I used to listen to them on loop, and then I never actually bothered putting any of my downloaded music on this phone. Oh. So I haven't actually listened to the Homestuck soundtrack in a while, except occasionally the Friendsym soundtrack, because James Roach has that on Spotify.
Right. I forgot about that. I've got it as well, also downloaded.
But yeah, still listen to a bunch of the Homestuck soundtrack on loop. Every once in a while I'll write something and it's like, this sounds like a Homestuck song. You fucking stole this from a Homestuck song. Or specifically a Homestuck fan song. Stolen a lot of like harmonic movement from Famisi.
That's fair. Oh.
It is almost 11.
We should go.
Probably eat some dinner.
You should eat some dinner, and I've got some like music to review.
Right.
And some other stuff I've got to review for Friendsym too.
Do we have anything to advertise?
I don't know. Not off the top of my head.
I mean, keep your eyes peeled for more info about upcoming Friendsym 2 stuff.
Well, next volume's coming out in 2 months. 2 months.
It's gonna blow your fucking minds. It's been a year in the making.
It's good. It's got a lot of stuff going on, and it's gonna be neat. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
And, when it comes to my channel, honestly, I deeply apologize, but I'm going down to monthly uploads. I am trying to battle capitalism currently, so next thing you should expect on my channel is either going to be an Articulate Cast episode, because I have a guest planned for that, I just have to find a recording date set up for that, or a cover, which I have to gather some people
I
for.
think that you should go to daily uploads, but the uploads should be just like 4-second clips of you like saying a letter in a different environment. You just like record it on your phone. You're just
a single letter?
A, and that's it. And like you're not gonna explain why you're doing this.
Am I putting together a message?
No, you're just doing like the alphabet.
So No, if I do something like that, it's got to be like a secret message. It's got to be like an ARG type thing, you know?
No, the point is this is low effort.
Okay, but I don't do low effort content.
The point is that this is just like, it's going to be like, what's the meaning to it? But there isn't actually any meaning. It's just easy to do.
No,
so...
I'm not doing that.
And then you'll just do like sounds. You'll just do like, ah. E. E.
E. Ooh.
It'll be like, and then you'll post this cryptic message. It'll be like, I'm about to upload my longest video yet, and you'll upload this video that's like 2 hours long, and it's just all of them strung together. So it's just you like flickering between different locations, going like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, E, H, I, J, K, ooh.
This is the worst idea you've ever had.
No, it's not. I've had way worse ideas.
How is this not the worst? And I fell for you because of how brilliant you were.
You're going to tell me this is the worst idea than Boss Baby the Musical with Paper Mache?
No, Boss Baby the Musical is a much better idea than that. I'm sorry. That one actually has a plot and would make me a lot of money.
Does it have a plot, though? I don't feel
It's the plot of the Boss Baby.
It's just the plot of Boss Baby.
No, the Boss Baby the Musical, the point of that is to make me a millionaire so I can work on the art I actually want to work
exactly.
on. I love it. I want to hear the other worst idea. The other worst idea is Boss Baby the Musical.
That's pretty bad.
Have we ever told you guys about Boss Baby the Musical? Jonaya wants me to option the rights for the Boss Baby.
No, I want you to convince them to make it and get you in charge of it.
That's called optioning the rights.
I thought optioning the rights was when you paid for the rights.
Well, that's how it works.
What the fuck?
Unless they commission it
That's
directly.
That's what I mean. They gotta commission you. That you're gonna make them see how good of an idea this is. They're gonna make a ton of money.
No. You convince them to let you option the rights.
Oh,
They have to approach you first if they're gonna commission you.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, Boss Baby the musical, and the everybody's wearing giant Boss Baby paper mache heads.
Well, no, they're paper mache in the off-Broadway version.
Okay, yeah, in the Broadway
On the
production,
Broadway
they have
version,
like unsettling
they got, like,
fursuits.
high-quality mascot costumes, but they're like the giant fucking baby heads.
Yeah.
So they're horrifying.
Exactly. Yeah, so obviously I'm never gonna be rich.
Yeah, I
because I have to do this to do
you
that.
think of a celebrity to get for Boss Baby the musical if you really wanted to. If you really wanted to make a lot of money, you need a celebrity.
Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman. You get fucking. I mean, he did the voice. The voice in the original was Alec Baldwin. So
Okay,
you
but can Alec
you can
Baldwin
get him
sing?
on stage, and then he'll like, I don't know, shoot people or whatever he's doing these days. God, that was fucking nightmarish.
Isn't the trial still going on?
I
for
think
that?
it is. Yeah, like just the like firing the Union armor and like. Alec Baldwin being like, "Oh, don't worry, I totally know what's on about handling guns."
Why was it real?
Aged like fucking
Why was
milk.
it armed with a real ass bullet? Why was it not
know.
full of blanks?
I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know why they had real ammo on the set.
Yeah,
Like what possible purpose would there be for doing that?
Everything's done in CGI nowadays
That's like
anyway.
shit. That's like the kind of shit they used to do like in the early days of film, where they'd be like, "We need guns like shooting at stuff," and they just like shoot actual guns at stuff and film it.
I mean, makes sense if there's literally no effects at your disposal, but
man, that shit
there's
was
VFX at everyone's disposal now.
That shit was real not great back then.
Yeah. Well.
So. Well, we can't have Alec Baldwin because he's apparently a fucking murderer.
I was imagining Rob Cantor Shia LaBeouf song. That's the idea.
Okay, we were all thinking Shia LaBeouf, but none of us wanted to
Fighting
say
for
it.
your life, it's Shia LaBeouf. Brandishing a knife, it's Shia LaBeouf. Looking in the shadow.
But Hugh Jackman does have that star appeal. He got people to go see The Music Man.
Mm-hmm.
And all the Midwest tourists love him, so...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I said Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
He's the one that people hire because he's the one Broadway person who also happens to be a Marvel actor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he was like a Broadway person first, wasn't he? Yeah, that's right.
He can sing.
Oh, no, I know he can sing. The Music Man is just unsalvageable.
The old days of Hollywood sharpshooters.
Yeah. The fucking Music Man is just not a good musical. It doesn't matter who you put in charge of it.
I don't like it. Like, you would have to make some serious fucking changes.
You'd have to write another musical that's like Music Man adjacent or a Music Man theme.
The Music Lesbian.
Yeah, I have my
Harold Hill is now Harriet Hill, and instead of haranguing Marion until she decides that she falls in love with Harold Hill, Harriet Hill just sort of, flirts in a subtle lesbian way, and she falls for her in a subtle lesbian way.
Yeah. I don't know. Music Man is bad. It's bad. The movie.
Man.
The movie is the worst.
I made Jonaya watch it with me because I had to watch it for class, and Jonaya live tweeted it. It was hilarious.
It was bad. It was not a good movie. I don't know why that's a classic. It's got like racism.
You don't know what The Music Man is about? It's about a con man comes to a small Iowa town and cons a bunch of people into giving him a bunch of money and ends up basically harassing a librarian until she falls in love with him.
If you've seen the episode of The Simpsons with the monorail, that was based on The Music Man, so it's like that, but with like a lot more sexism and a bunch of racism for some reason. Well, because it was in the 50s.
The new version actually did take away the racism.
I mean, that's a very low bar. Like, that's such a low bar.
But like, the premise is so sexist that I don't think it can be salvaged without some serious fucking
T-Man has seen Music Man. There you go.
You know what we're
talking about. It's for some reason like the most popular fucking musical for like high schools to put on and stuff.
It's because there's a lot of parts.
That's true.
There's a lot of parts. You can have a big ensemble.
Yeah.
Like, even for the kids who aren't gonna be strong enough singers to be the main characters, you can have kids being like the barbershop quartet guys,
or those roles. You got the main roles.
that group of women that they're extremely fucking misogynist against.
Group of stereotypical women, bad caricatures of Native Americans. You know, lots of roles.
I don't think school shows do that part either.
Probably not. I would hope not.
But yeah, it's one of those shows with a lot of parts, which means it's really good for middle schools and high schools.
Yeah. I was that's the only musical I've ever been in any capacity, because when I was in middle school I was in the band, and they had us be like the band that comes in at the end. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have to do anything. I just had
You were one of the 76 trombones.
Yeah, except there was not 76 of us. There was like 3. There was like 3 trombones. I was one of the trombones. I played them. That's what I played. I played trombone. So it was me and like maybe how many of us actually agreed to it? There was like 3 of us.
That or West Side Story for musicals they show in high schools. They should probably not be doing West Side Story in high schools unless they have like a significant Latinx population, maybe specifically Puerto Rican population.
Lots of cultural appropriation. That's how you make things better.
They never did West Side Story in my middle or high school, probably because it was a very white community.
I don't remember what things they put on when I was in high school. I feel like my high school did more like plays than musicals, but I don't remember. I know I was involved in like the concerts because I did band.
Yeah.
But I didn't really pay attention to the theater, to be honest.
I paid attention from afar because I thought it was unattainable to me because all of the theater girls were scary.
I mean, and also my auditorium got burned down.
I forgot about that.
You forgot about that. That was like, so when I was
Oh, sorry about that. I did not realize that was the what term would you prefer?
I think that depends on the person.
What's the general consensus, if there is one? But yeah, tell us your story.
Yeah, when I was like I think it was a junior. Oh, Latino. Okay.
Oh, okay.
When I was a junior, I think it was when I was a junior. We had a fire drill and early in the day, and then we found out that someone had tried to start a fire in like a can in the gym, and then later in the day we had another fire drill, and it's like, okay, what is this now? And then we were going out in the field, and then we turned back and we see a bunch of smoke pouring out of the building. And what had happened is someone had started a fire behind the scenes and behind the stage in the auditorium, and it gutted the auditorium. And it turned out there was this very fucked up story about it, which I didn't know the details of until a few years ago because I had looked at it. There was this one girl that was blamed for doing it, and apparently she had either been put up to it by some other people, or she was one of several people that were involved, but she was the one that got blamed. Coincidentally, one of 2 black kids at my school, I'm sure just by pure fucking coincidence, that she was the one who ended up getting blamed for this.
And let me guess, you didn't fucking do it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if she had any involvement in it, if she was goaded into doing it or convinced to do it, or she was part of it or didn't do it at all. I don't actually know. But there was a lot more to the story than we were told at the time, which was basically she started the fire to get out of school, which was wow, that's a really fucking
dumb reason to burn down the school?
/ bad luck, because the story at the time was she tried to start a fire just to get people out of school, but she didn't intend for it to get as bad as it was. But apparently the story was a lot more fucked up apparently, in terms of how she was treated, and that really sucks. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
But
that made it all over the news and everything, and yeah, it's still something a few people remember. It happened in 98 or something like that. You can find a news. There's a news story out about it on YouTube.
But someone made a YouTube video about it?
No, it's just a clip of the news
yeah.
report, but it was uploaded like in 2000 something.
That'd be really funny if there was someone did like a YouTube investigation of this one arson account in Acton, Massachusetts in the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting. It would have a very niche audience, but like, there's definitely more to that story than was, commonly circulated at the time. It's just
teens in the next town over burned down their high school. God damn. High school once went on lockdown because 2 black men were working nearby.
What the fuck?
God damn. What fucking racist community did you grow up in? Gotta love arson. There were no arson accounts at my high school. But my middle school, there was a kid who died by being squished by the electric bleachers.
I do have... So there's a funnier arson story from my high school because, of course, there's, like, multiple arson stories. So the funnier one is, one day, it's like we were walking through the science lab, and there was all this smoke, and they evacuated us. There was a ton of smoke around. And so
Missouri, that explains it.
So, like, there were these desks in the chemistry lab, and they had these holes where you could fit, like, spigots and stuff.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
But they were just open because they didn't have the spigots fitted. And kids would throw paper down them. And one dude that I knew, someone dared him, or he thought it was a good idea independently, to see what would happen if you took a match and threw it down in there. And what happens is that the paper lights on fire and it fills the wing of the school with smoke. Like, it didn't cause any big damage. It didn't cause any major, like... I mean, it probably damaged the desk, but it didn't cause, like, a massive fire. It just caused a ton of smoke. And I think he got suspended for it. But that was just him being, like, his dumbass. It was just like, yeah, I'm going to see what happens. Well, that's basically what I expected.
That feels like... like something some kid would do at like any school.
Yeah.
Gotta love arson.
It was like, man, what did you think was gonna happen? But yeah, so those were the arsons that happened when I was in the school. I don't know if there were any before or since.
I can't think of any fun arson stories from when I was in school.
There were also persistent rumors about there were always these crazy rumors about, like, senior skip day and, like, all the awful things the seniors were gonna definitely totally super do. For real, y'all. And, like, one of them was that they were gonna fill super soakers with Nair, and that would make your hair go... Like, it's like, that's not how Nair works! Like, it's actually very inefficient and slow. Like, if you've ever used Nair to try to get rid of leg hair, it sucks.
It takes, like, 15 minutes.
And doesn't work well. Like,
I used to use Nair for my little girl mustache. And
man, I tried to use Nair.
It just gave me a rash.
I tried to use Nair for my legs, and it just didn't do shit. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna shave, because fuck this shit. So, like, yeah, that was always dumb. But then they, like, really cracked down on the senior thing, because they were like, nah, man, y'all gonna not do this. And I don't know, I don't remember what the hell I don't know. I skipped class a bunch when I didn't want to go, like gym specifically.
Yeah, that was the only class I ever skipped. I got to the end of my
I got like
senior
a D
year.
in gym.
I got to the end of my senior year, and I was like, I have never skipped a single class, and it's probably pretty bad of me to have gone my entire school career going to every single class or being, like, perfectly good at excusing myself from every single class, so I'm just gonna fucking skip gym once. So I skipped gym, and I went into the band room and told the band teacher that I had a free period that day because I had a free period in that period on, like, the opposite, like, type day.
So we did that, and then we had to do like community service as part of the thing as a senior.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Which I don't know how I feel about that, but like whatever. It got arranged through the school, and what I ended up doing was, me and some friends were like helping out at this like nature I don't know. It was like a trail or something. We were helping
Oh no, your senior year was 2020.
Trail.
Fuck.
Oh boy, that's fun.
Oh, fucking 2020.
Yeah.
I am so glad I graduated from undergrad in 2019. Like, all of the people who had their, like, senior recitals in 2020, like, they didn't even get fucking senior recitals.
Yeah.
And shit, if the pandemic had hit in 2019 instead of 2020, I wouldn't have done Times Apprentice.
That's true.
Because the pandemic hit right around the time that Times Apprentice was revving up in 2019.
Times Apprentice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I might have still done it online.
Okay, that's fair.
SockCon
well,
still
I'm
was
glad
happen.
you did Times Apprentice.
Stop doing your classes up. Honestly, who fucking didn't? Virtual school is
virtual schools.
A fucking farce.
I remember, because I went back to college to get my math degree, and I did a bunch of classes online, but they were like, before video classes were common. So, like, it was all asynchronous. Like, I didn't do meetings. We had, like, a message board. We used Blackboard.
I guess you could technically... I don't know. That feels like it'd be hard with a math class. Don't you need someone to
No,
explain
it wasn't
concepts
for my
to you?
math classes. It was for, like, the stupid history class I had to do and, like, a literature class.
Huh.
The only math class I did remotely was, like, my Calc 1, which I'd already taught myself how to do calculus.
But that feels like a literature class. I mean, I guess you can still have the discussions on the message board.
Yeah, that's
but,
what
like,
we did. It was just board-based.
I don't know. Like, part of the meat of the discussions is getting to bounce off people.
Man, I didn't want to do that shit. I just had to do it to get through the class. I didn't want to actually be there. I'd already done literature classes in person.
I mean, I guess, but, like...
I just wanted to get the credit for it, because I couldn't transfer all my credits from my other degree.
That's fair, yeah. Your
No, fuck
stupid
that
other
shit.
degree.
I got a history of New York class.
Oh, that's...
Which was actually kind of interesting. No, it was actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, virtual school is a fucking joke. My the first year of my grad program was virtual, and, like, it was fine. It wasn't terrible, but also, like, musical theater writing is something that you do virtually anyway. Like, most people's collaborators live in different cities. Both of my collaborators live in different cities. So that wasn't something that was particularly, like, bad to be virtual, but, like... Oh, God, if I was in high school when the pandemic hit, imagine trying to go to fucking, like,
Man, high school
classes
already...
virtually.
High school already sucked so much ass.
Yeah.
Like... That's not a good system. It's not. It's just not.
It needs to be completely restructured in a way that allows kids to form passions.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm glad I'm done with school. College was fine. I like college, but
yeah.
Also, I'm not like sad that I'm not in college anymore.
I mean, I am. I miss the structure of school.
You do a forever degree. You just keep going back and get a new degree. You get grants to live off of. You get another PhD.
I mean, they do usually give stipends for PhDs, but only if you're, like, researching something valuable. I think you have to pay out of pocket if you're getting a PhD in something useless, like music theory.
You might find a research degree for music. You learn
what am I going to research about music?
History or some shit. I don't fucking know.
I'm not
you're
interested
not
enough
a
in history.
music history person.
No.
I know that. You're gonna research new musical techniques that have never been discovered before. I don't know what they are because they haven't been discovered yet.
I have to
by
be
you.
in the contemporary classical field though, and I don't want to go back in the world of contemporary classical.
You could do research into writing Boss Baby the musical. that'll be your final thesis.
Boss Baby. I mean, I did do a writing a musical thesis. It's called Maca, and it's available on my Patreon for $1.
It's good. But it's not Boss Baby the musical. It's not going to make you those big time Boss Baby dollars.
The reason why Maca will never make any money is because all the big producers with all the money are usually men, and they're going to see it and they're going to be like, "Look at this man-hating musical," and they're not going to.
I feel like
best I've gotten out of college with some friends and having weed with some friends. Honestly, that's the best.
I didn't.
You didn't.
I didn't use weed in college.
I did. One of my
drink,
roommates senior year had such a weed dependency. She was the first person who showed me how to use a bong, and she told me to suck and keep sucking. And I think we can tell how bad that went.
That's the good advice.
I was online homeschooled. I'm convinced I only have a 9th grade education. I mean, shit. I can't refute that. I don't know how homeschooling is in your state. It varies so much state by state that, like...
Yeah.
Some states, like, they have no regulation. You technically could have, like, a 6th grade education.
you get an education in, Jesus.
Get your doctorate in Homestuck the Musical.
Yeah, right.
I mean, shit, now that, What Pumpkin is giving out licenses... If anyone from What Pumpkin is listening, if any of you have ever thought about the idea of optioning your rights, and have ever thought that Homestuck would make an excellent stage production and want one that is written from scratch with What Pumpkin's input and everything, I am a musical theater writer with a degree and multiple musicals under my belt.
You could tie it to SOCON, then technically it would fall in the purview of our license.
I mean, I've already done 5 Homestuck musicals for SOCON.
But it could be an official SOCON licensed musical featuring mostly Homestuck characters, which we technically could do legally.
I mean, would it be a Homestuck musical from the beginning all the way to the end? Because I stand by my I stand by my belief that Homestuck translates to stage excellently, but it does need to be cut up.
Yeah, because it's like a fucking 800,000 words long.
Oh boy, no regulations in your state for homeschool.
I have a degree in biblical literalism.
Oh my god. Honestly, so homeschool is too, but high school is kind of a farce.
Yeah, it's
so
super big
honestly,
farce.
as long as you can have like the ability to do reading comprehension.
Oh man, that's like
reading comprehension is probably the most important thing that you ever learn in high school.
Reading and I didn't really like do good in math until I got to college, and I have a degree in math, so like
I technically, quote unquote, did good in math. I was in the most advanced classes, and I don't remember shit.
Well, I probably learned more math in service of learning to program computers, and I did that on my own. I did not learn that from school, because that wasn't even an option back when I was in school.
It's longer than the Bible. Have you seen how many Bible musicals? Yeah, exactly. Which is why, just like the Bible musicals have to be split up into multiple Jesus musicals, and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and, what's it called? Children of Eden.
Okay, but like the story of Joseph.
Homestuck musicals have to be cut up into, like, you could have the Carcat musical, Carcat story.
The story of Joseph is one of those ones where it's like, if you stop and kind of like parse everything that's happening, it's almost like funny, because it's like, oh, our brother really fucking annoys us. What are we gonna do? We're gonna sell him into slavery. And then when it all wraps around and then he sees his brothers again, it's like, nah, it's no big deal. I've got like power and shit. It's all good.
Yeah.
That story is crazy.
I mean, that's why as much as I don't like Andrew Lloyd Webber, that's why it made a good musical.
Like, I don't give a shit about all the Jesus crap, but like the story of Joseph is an interesting one.
Broadway Carcat, if you will. Well, Broadway Stuck is still active. Go look up modern Broadway Stuck on Tumblr. I am the Broadway Vriska. There's a couple of Broadway Vriska songs sung by me.
Yeah. That's not getting advertised. There you go.
I mean, yeah, honestly, if you have good reading and media literacy, you're good. Yeah, honestly, that is the most important thing that public school can teach you, is just being able to have the kind of media literacy that makes it so if you see something, you're not gonna, think that, the morals of a problematic character mean that the author is problematic or something like that.
My mom's thinking on when it came to school in general was that the ultimate goal of it was to leave you with a sense of critical thinking and ability to think and comprehend stuff and examine things, and the specific way that you get to that isn't isn't always going to be the same, but like to focus on like analysis and comprehension rather than like memorization, because like honestly memorization is like such a low tier usefulness skill. Like people put a lot of emphasis on it because it's like it seems really impressive when somebody can like remember a bunch of facts, but also like what are you doing with that? Like we have so many ways of like augmenting our memory, like having a way to write things down, and like so much of what you do in a lot of fields is like you cannot possibly remember everything.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, shit. I may know a lot about music theory, but I will still have to like look up the proper
like
way
there's
to
so
do
much
a
in
certain like movement of
there's
jazz chord.
so much in programming that's like you offload the task of like memorization to other things. Like that's what code completion is all about in IntelliSense. And it's like
or like proper orchestration. There's a reason why everybody's told to purchase a specific orchestration textbook, because my undergrad professors would reference that same orchestration textbook.
And that's the thing.
While
You
writing
used to,
their
like,
thing.
before the internet, you had books on everything, and you reference the books. It's like, yeah, you don't usually remember everything, and that's not a good, like, it's not a super useful skill, because, like, okay, what are you going to do with that?
Like, I like school. I like the idea of school. I like the structure and the, basically giving you ideas on how to continue, how to, like, create different things. And, like, learning different things is a good idea. You can't just stick with one thing forever, because then the things that maybe you're not quite as interested in, that's going to help give you ideas for other things. Like, I mean, shit, when I was in, it was like my sophomore year of undergrad, I was really stuck for ideas, and my professor was like, have you considered taking some literature classes?
Yeah.
'Cause that's gonna give you ideas on what to write music on. So, like, yeah, having a broader idea of things to do and the structure, like, I like that aspect of it. It's just the grades and the self-worth destroying. And
yeah,
like the fact that memorization is so important in school when it's not important outside of school.
Yeah, it's like not that it's like a completely useless skill, and like the ability to retain information is useful, but like the idea
learning
that it's
things
the
and
skill.
critical thinking and the opportunity to socialize. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing I really miss about college specifically, was the fact that like there were third spaces. There were built-in third spaces. If you wanted to just sort of hang out in a lounge and wait for someone to show up, it doesn't matter who it is, it's just going to be someone you can chat with. You can totally do that.
$40,000 a year to be there. There better be some fucking third spaces.
Yeah, serious. $40,000. NYU was $70,000 a year.
Oh, that's true. How much was IC? Oh, it was free. Okay.
For me.
For you, yeah. How much would it cost if it wasn't free?
With room and board, somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000
a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're paying $40,000 to be there a year. You better get some fucking third spaces.
And science comprehension is important specifically so people know not to like fucking disagree with scientists when they're told things about things like climate change or COVID, or like being able to know that, oh, this is peer-reviewed research, I should maybe believe this scientist.
Even just knowing how like scientific analysis is done is like, because there's a lot of people that don't know that, and that's bad. It's bad to not know that. Also, community college is dope.
Yeah, it's like affordable.
Like that's a very valid and good and awesome thing.
Community
to use
college, like taking time at community college, should be something that should be more encouraged for people to do. Everybody is told that like, oh, the good thing to do is to get the 4-year degree.
And the
but
thing
like,
is, like,
it's.
I mean,
Jojo
is
did
your
degree.
degree. Once you get out of it and like you start getting into it working, your degree stops like mattering much. Like my degree is from a pretty small, private, general college. It's not a super like, prestigious college. It's not a horrible one, but, like, it's not anything. Like, no one's like, oh my god, you've been to that school? That's amazing. But also, like, it doesn't really matter because, like, once you start getting into work, unless you're, like, you know, a fucking Nepo baby type person where it's like, oh, you went to Yale and you get to do Yale shit. And it's like, well, okay, but that you're in a very privileged world to begin with, so... Like, yeah, if you go to fucking Yale Law School and you get into all the big old law firms, it's like, okay, yeah, sure, that's...
I mean, the big names are for connections. Like,
Yeah,
the $70,000 a year price tag at NYU is specifically so I can get in with the theater community, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I can use the professors I had as references for jobs. If I'm trying to apply for, like, working at a big fancy theater, I can be like, hey, this award-winning professor was one of my professors, or this award-winning Broadway composer was one of my professors, and she can vouch for me. So, like, you're paying for the connections. You're paying for the connections, and in some fields, that's super important.
You're paying for that name recognition, baby. Man, I went to NYU for a semester. Well, a year, not just a semester. I wish I'd stayed at NYU.
Yeah, then we could both say that we're NYU alumni. But you would have a whole...
Matter much.
Yeah. I mean, you'd probably be in the same space, the same...
No, I think I probably would be, because I wouldn't have stayed in the nursing program.
Yeah, would you have switched to something like... would you have switched to something like math or computer science or game development? You probably could have switched to game development.
Game development wasn't a program at the time.
Ah, damn.
It didn't exist until 2008. Yeah, no, I don't know. I wanted to do a couple things. I was thinking about doing chemistry. I might have switched to chemistry.
And then we'd be in the girl boss timeline.
Yeah, the one where I become a lawyer.
Yeah, chemical patents lawyer.
Chemical patents lawyer. Well, a lot of money.
You already make a lot of money.
I make even more. I make enough to buy a condo in the city.
Ooh.
Also,
but you never would have met me.
Probably not. I'd be working for some fucking chemical firm.
Yeah, and you probably wouldn't have time to do game dev or Homestuck on the side.
Actually, no. I'd probably be working for a law firm that does patent stuff because they usually don't work for the company. They usually work for a law firm.
Yeah, instead of being Kanaya coded, you would be Tagora coded.
Yeah, or Stelsa coded.
Or Stelsa coded. Yeah, you just straight up be Stelsa.
Yeah.
I mean, you wear so much bright red, you're just one step away from wearing a lot of bright pink.
Let me make it a little bit lighter.
All you need is to adopt a British accent full time.
Stelsa's not canonically British.
She's canonically British now.
British because we picked a British voice actor.
We've made her canonically British.
Like, they don't have canon voices.
Okay, but Friends Him 2 is basically the canon voice.
Yeah, but, like, they don't actually have canon voices.
Stelsa's British.
Yeah, I guess. And
Chat,
Sarava,
do you agree that Stelsa is British?
And Sarava, too, now.
Sarava is also British, yeah.
That works surprisingly well.
Oh, yeah. Usually I have Alex do an American accent, but British Sarava is...
Well, that was the
better.
thing, is like, because they did an American accent at first.
Yeah, because that's what they usually do for
and
my
I was like, and their
channel.
audio quality was, like, fucked up, because they had some problems with their setup, and I was, like, redoing it, and I was, like, asking for samples, and I heard their regular accent, because they were sending me samples, and I'm like, wait.
This is awesome.
Just do your regular accent for Sarava, and it worked out really, really well.
We have such a good cast.
Yeah. No, it's good. We're gonna have the Purple Bloods in Volume 12.
Ooh, yeah. I'm excited for that to come out, even though I didn't really work on it at all. Unless you have some of the Marvis album in it.
There's one line of the lyrics mentioned, but...
Okay, but none of it's in the background or anything.
Nah.
So yeah, I didn't work on this one at all then.
Nah, that's the, it's just, yeah. No, the people involved, like, Miranda and I split the writing. We got Riot and Cole did the sprites. Cole did the designs, Riot did the actual final sprites, and that one sprite done by Daydreamer. Well, still being worked on.
Sarava can be British. Stelsa can maybe be begrudgingly.
Yeah, see, it's not a guarantee. Is that begrudgingly?
Yes.
Stolza could not be British.
She's just so...
He just associated with Texas voice. Yeah, because Texas like always doing her voice.
When I was looking for someone to do Chixie for the latest Darius Punk Band video, Tex offered, and I was like, listen, you're a good soprano. Your voice is great. But I would not be able to unhear that as Stelsa has joined DPP.
Yeah. I can see Stelsa having other non-British voices though.
Yeah, I mean, we originally were...
Maybe she could talk like this, like she's from Long Island.
I mean, a lot of people have Linda from Bob's Burgers accent, headcanon for Stelsa. And, like, that's why we originally put her up for audition. We didn't pre-cast Stelsa.
Yeah, that's true.
But Tex was just still the best in the end.
We didn't, and then it was like, but the other options weren't as good. So.
Just like we didn't pre-cast CL as Gallic.
Yeah, you're right.
You asked CL to audition for Gallic.
Yeah, because I liked CL's voice for it.
Yeah.
And they did a good job.
Yeah.
No, I there was a couple of them where it was like that.
The first couple routes just being our friends, and then Volume 3 coming in with the new VAs.
The Marcy VA did a really good job.
Oh, yeah, the Marcy VA is great.
One of the best VAs in the game.
Part of why Volume 4 is so fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think Volume 4 is, like, one of my favorite volumes.
It was a good volume.
It had nothing to do with it, and it ended up being, like...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good stuff. I did the writing for the end of it, bits after you leave the tower and when Zebedee shows up. So I read all the Zebedee dialogue.
Friend Sim 2's got some good stuff coming for it. It's almost fucking over.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it's all over, we do another
16-hour stream.
16-hour stream.
Oh, it'll be longer than 16 hours.
Oh, it is going to be longer than 16
it's
hours.
The back half of the game. We didn't do volume... We finished volume 7?
We did volume 7. We didn't do 8.
Well, volume 8 was the... Depending on how you want to count it, longest or second longest route.
Yeah, but we'd have to do the Torona route because we did the Amicia route originally.
Yeah, you're right. Well, they're about the same length.
I don't know anything that goes on in the Torona route because I never played it.
They're similar, but that's the one where they diverge like pretty.
They diverge early, yeah.
Volume 12 is very.
Volume 12 is a monster.
It's very long and like it doesn't really diverge too much because it's got like. I mean, it's got a little bit. The divergence point is at the end. It's gonna be good. Volume 13 is not super. It's moderately long, and volume 14 is pretty long.
And then we got the end bits and all that.
Yeah, the end bits. Well, there's a lot of end bits.
Yeah.
Volume 10 is 9.
That's shorter.
9 is moderately long. 10 is fairly 10 is shorter, but has a lot of like gameplay stuff.
Yeah.
11 is medium length. Neither of them is short, but
it's been a while since I played 2. I mean, fuck, I haven't played any Friend Sim 2 since we did our 16-hour stream. Mm-hmm. On 4/13. 4/13's what day of the week is 4? Is it a Saturday this year?
Saturday.
Okay, that's gonna be. I gotta figure out how we're gonna do our stream that day.
Yeah.
Because I work early on Sunday mornings, so I gotta be back at my place by the evening. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
So we do have to stream it on 4/13 because I gotta do something on 4/13.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out what my yearly 4/13 special should be this year. I did the 4/13 special I'd wanted to do for years with Suburban Juxtaposition last year, and now I don't know what I'm gonna do. I need some more good comics to dub. If any of you know any good comics, send them my way. I'm not singing in a key right now.
Oh. Alright, we should probably
call it a day. It's 11:30 and I haven't eaten dinner yet.
You haven't eaten dinner. I've got some shit I gotta do.
But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and also thank you for hanging out with us afterwards. That's always fun.
Thanks for listening to random stories from our background. Arson stories.
Arson. So yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.